Decoding Anxiety Part 2, Master Your Mind, Calm Your Brain, Thrive in College by Dr. Sheila Hodge-Windover. Copyright 2026 by Dr. Sheila Hodge-Windover. P.O. Box 7990. Lawton, Oklahoma, 73506. All rights reserved. No part of this publication may be reproduced, distributed, or transmitted in any form or by any means, including photocopying, recording, or other electronic or mechanical methods, without the prior written permission of the publisher, except in the case of brief quotations embodied in critical reviews and certain other non-commercial uses permitted by copyright law. www.unravelred.com www.mindheartandsoul.com www.drhodgewindover.com www.drhodgewindoverinstitute.com. Disclaimer. Welcome to this Decoding Anxiety Part 2. Before you dive into the chapters ahead, it is important to understand the purpose of this book and its limits. This book is designed for one purpose only. It is meant to help you understand what anxiety disorders are according to the DSM-5-TR, the official manual used by mental health professionals. Think of this book as a translator. It takes the complex clinical language of the APA 2022 and turns it into simple English that makes sense for your college life. Even though Part 2 of this book provides direct examples of things that can be done to rewire your brain so that you do not have to live a life of constant anxiety, this book is still not a self-help book. Those examples are for educational purposes only. They are meant to illustrate concepts, not to replace professional care. The reason for this distinction is simple. The APA 2022 emphasizes that diagnosing and treating mental disorders requires years of specialized training. The DSM-5-TR is a tool for professionals, not a self-help manual. Reading about panic disorder does not make you qualified to treat it, just like reading about brain surgery does not qualify you to operate on a friend. If you are reading these chapters and thinking, wow, this sounds exactly like what I am going through, please hear this clearly. You now have valuable information, but what you need next is professional help. Anxiety disorders are real medical conditions. They are not character flaws, and they are not something you should have to figure out alone. According to the DSM-5-TR, as cited by the APA 2022, these disorders cause significant distress or disability. They can interfere with your ability to go to class, maintain friendships, and even take care of yourself. As we discuss later in this book, they can also be linked to more serious risks like suicidal thoughts. If you are experiencing symptoms of anxiety that are interfering with your life, please do not try to handle this alone. Do not rely on this book or any book to fix it. If you or someone you know is experiencing anxiety, you need to seek professional help. Reach out to a professional who can give you the individualized care you deserve. If you are a college student, your school almost certainly has free or low-cost counseling services. That is what they are there for. Go to the counseling center. Make an appointment. Talk to someone. If you are not in school or prefer outside help, look for a therapist, psychologist, or psychiatrist in your community. Talk to your regular doctor. Tell a trusted family member or friend that you are struggling and need support finding help. If you are having thoughts of suicide or if you know someone who is, that is an emergency. Do not wait. Call a crisis hotline immediately. In the United States, you can dial 988 to reach the Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. They are available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and they will listen without judgment. Knowledge is powerful. Understanding your own mind or the mind of a friend is the first step toward compassion and healing. But knowledge is not a substitute for treatment. This book is your guide to understanding the landscape of anxiety disorders according to the DSM-5-TR. It is not a map out of the wilderness. For that, you need a trained guide, a professional who can walk with you and help you find your way. Please read this book with curiosity and an open mind. Learn what the APA 2022 has to say about these conditions. Recognize yourself or others in these pages if that is your reality. But when you close this book, if you need help, please go find it. You are worth that effort. You are worth getting well, and you do not have to do it alone. Contents. Chapter 1, Understanding Anxiety 9. Chapter 2, The Anxious Mind 14. Chapter 3, The Brain's Balance 17. Chapter 4, The Plastic Mind 21. Chapter 5, Your Brain's Toolkit 25. Chapter 6, The Two Faces of Fear 29. Chapter 7, Learning Brain 33. Chapter 8, The Neural Highways of Fear 36. Chapter 9, The Guardian's Retraining 40. Chapter 10, The Architect of Anxiety 44. Chapter 11, The Mind's DJ 48. Chapter 12, The Anticipatory Mind 52. Chapter 13, The Balanced Mind 56. Chapter 14, The Empowered Mind 60. Appendix 64. Glossary 76. Introduction. My personal experience with anxiety. The seed of a lifelong fear is often planted in a single, shattering moment. For me, it was not one moment, but a series of them, written into my memory not with ink, but with the sound of gnashing teeth and frantic barks echoing down a dark road. My story with anxiety, particularly the visceral dread I feel around a certain animal, did not emerge from a vague unease. It was forged in the stark terror of childhood, a terror that returned again and again with startling clarity. Imagine the pure vulnerability of a child walking home at night, the world reduced to the circle of dim light around you and your mother. Then, the shadows come alive. They are not shadows, but animals, large and unleashed, emerging with a focused intensity that freezes your blood. I remember the desperate rhythm of our escape, my mother brandishing her Bible like a shield, the dogs retreating for a breathless second, our frantic run, and then the thunder of paws catching up again. That ritual of advance and retreat felt eternal, a nightmare unfolding step by step on the familiar path home. That was merely the first chapter. The fear became a pattern, a cruel lesson the world seemed determined to teach me. Even dogs that knew me, that had previously accepted my presence, could turn in an instant. A waiting bite from a friend's pet, a sudden, vicious charge from familiar guardians at a family home, each event layered a new scar over the old ones. The culmination was an attack so severe I have long kept the details locked away, a final, confirming blow that cemented a primal understanding. These animals were not simply pets. For some, they were unpredictable vectors of pain. This history is not just a recollection of past events. It is the living foundation of a phobia, a nervous system trained over years to sound a deafening alarm. While I have never received a formal diagnosis, the fingerprints of this anxiety are clear. It extends beyond dogs to a keen awareness of vulnerability around heights and vast, deep water. But it is the canine form that holds the most specific, a trigger that instantly connects the present to the past. Ironically, a later discovery of a physical allergy to dogs provided a practical, medical reason for my avoidance, a neat justification for a fear that needed none. This is the elegant and unsettling truth of how my anxiety took root, not as an abstraction, but as a direct, repeated, and unforgettable answer to a perceived threat to my very safety. What began with the primal fear of animals soon revealed itself to be part of a broader tapestry of anxiety, woven with different threads in different situations. My anxiety was never a single, monolithic shadow, but rather a shape-shifting presence that chose its form based on context. Alongside the visceral terror inspired by dogs, I also navigated two distinct periods of social anxiety in my youth, though they were beautifully specific. This was not a general fear of people, but a sharp, paralyzing self-consciousness that only emerged under two conditions: when I found myself in entirely new and strange places, or when I sensed dislike from those around me. I can still feel the cold, shaky vulnerability of standing up for the first time at the Serval Early Childhood Center in Trinidad, asked to introduce myself to a sea of unfamiliar faces. The fear was physical, a tremor that started deep within. Yet, this story holds a twist of grace. Serval, with its mandatory daily public speaking class, did not simply ask me to face my fear. It dismantled it through relentless, gentle practice. The strange magic was that I never feared speaking before those I knew. It was solely the unknown audience that triggered the panic. Through daily exposure, that particular trigger lost its power. The fear didn't just lessen, it vanished completely, leaving in its place a confidence I carry to this day. A similar transformation occurred with another social fear, the acute anxiety of eating in public. My first weeks in the large, communal dining hall at Serval were agonizing. Every meal felt like a performance, convinced that every clink of my utensil was being judged. Yet, through the simple, repeated act of sharing meals day after day, that intense self-consciousness dissolved. The community became familiar, the ritual became normal, and the anxiety canceled itself out. In many ways, I would say Serval acted as a powerful healer for these social anxieties, proving they were not inherent traits, but learned reactions that could be unlearned through supported experience. This left, however, a core trio of fears that proved more tenacious, rooted not in social perception, but in direct, personal trauma. The fear of large bodies of water, for instance, was seated in childhood tragedy with the drowning of my best friend, Ruth, in the Bay mere minutes from our home. That profound loss was then compounded by a terrifying experience at a Sunday school picnic where well-meaning adults pulled me into deep water, creating a sensation of helpless drowning. These foundational events cemented a phobia that logic could not easily erode. So, while I conquered the fears of public speaking tied to unfamiliar people and places, 3 loyal companions remain: the height that triggers vertigo, the deep water that whispers of past loss, and the dogs that still echo with the barks of my childhood. Yet, there is a crucial footnote to this history, a defiant choice. Despite an intense dislike for flying, I board a plane every single year. I will not allow the anxiety to dictate my boundaries or halt my journey. This is the elegant tension of my experience, a lifetime of navigating between the anxieties that were gently dissolved by exposure and those that became ingrained through trauma, all underscored by a conscious decision to feel the fear and move forward regardless. Despite a long and personal relationship with anxiety, forged from phobias of dogs, heights, and vast, deep water, I have come to a powerful and reassuring conclusion: anxiety disorders are treatable. Science and experience show us that the brain can be rewired and responses can be retrained. This does not happen overnight. It requires time, dedication, and steady courage, but transformation is possible. My understanding is built on more than my own history. It is strengthened by years of working alongside people navigating various forms of anxiety, combined with dedicated research and teaching on the subject. This journey has granted me a deep respect for anxiety's complexities and a clear view of the pathways toward management. It is from this place of lived experience and gathered knowledge that I feel both humbled and competent to offer this book, not as a cure, but as a resource for decoding the language of anxiety. It is important to recognize that anxiety itself is not the enemy. In small measures, it serves a purpose. That flutter of nerves before a presentation can sharpen focus. The concern about a deadline can fuel motivation. A little anxiety can protect us, push us, and even enhance our performance. The problem arises when it grows beyond its useful role, when it becomes a constant, overwhelming noise that disrupts peace and hinders life. My hope is that this book, Decoding Anxiety, will serve as a helpful guide, illuminating the different forms anxiety can take and offering insight into its mechanisms. Yet, this intention comes with an essential reminder, stated clearly and without ambiguity. If you are experiencing significant distress, this book is an educational companion, not a replacement for professional care. Please do not use it as a reason to delay seeking help. Your well-being is paramount. If anxiety is impacting your life, take that brave, crucial step. Consult a licensed therapist or a medical doctor. True healing begins with expert support, and there is no greater priority than your own health and peace. Chapter 1: Understanding Anxiety. Welcome to a conversation about one of the most common human experiences, especially during your college years: anxiety. Have you ever felt your heart race before a big exam, your mind spiral with what-ifs about your future, or a knot in your stomach at the thought of a social event? These moments are signals from your mind and body, and understanding them is a powerful step toward taking charge of your well-being. Let's talk about anxiety, which almost every student encounters at some point. It's important to know that while stress about grades or finances is normal, anxiety disorders are different. They involve intense feelings of fear or nervousness that don't fade when the stressor passes and can start to interfere with your classes, friendships, and enjoyment of life. Think of fear as a sudden alarm bell, like the jolt you feel when you almost miss a deadline. Anxiety, however, is more like a constant background hum of dread about what might happen in the future, like persistent worry about your career path or your social standing. Everyone feels these things sometimes, but an anxiety disorder means these feelings are much more intense, last for months, and can feel impossible to manage or quiet down. For you, this might look like feeling constantly on edge and irritable, having relentless thoughts about failing or being judged, or avoiding situations like speaking in class, attending parties, or even going to the dining hall. Sometimes, these feelings can surge into a panic attack, a sudden, overwhelming wave of fear with physical symptoms like a pounding heart, shortness of breath, and dizziness. It's also common for anxiety to attach itself to specific parts of student life, like academic performance, social interactions, or health concerns. It is normal to be concerned about your grades, your future career, or fitting in. But when that worry becomes overwhelming, feels out of control, and causes you to avoid opportunities you would normally want, like skipping a class for fear of being called on or not joining a study group because of social nervousness, may be a sign of an anxiety disorder. This is not a sign of weakness, nor is it just part of the college experience. It is a real and treatable health condition. Your campus health or counseling center is a great place to start. A doctor or therapist can help you figure out what you're feeling. They will listen to your concerns about school, relationships, and pressure, and they understand the unique world you're navigating. The good news is that anxiety disorders are highly treatable. Getting support can help you feel more grounded, focused, and in control, allowing you to fully engage in the amazing opportunities and connections that college has to offer. Different forms of anxiety. In part 1 of Decoding Anxiety, we discussed the main different forms of anxiety. Remember, we discussed how agoraphobia involves a strong fear or anxiety about being in situations where escape might be difficult or help might not be available if you have a panic attack or feel incapacitated. APA 2022. For someone with agoraphobia, everyday situations like using public transportation, being in open or enclosed spaces like a mall or theater, standing in a line, or simply being outside of the home alone can feel overwhelmingly dangerous. This fear often leads to actively avoiding these situations, needing a companion to face them or enduring them with intense dread. It's important to understand that this fear is out of proportion to the actual danger the situations pose, and it can significantly restrict a person's life, sometimes making them feel unable to leave their home. Another common condition we discussed in part 1 of Decoding Anxiety is generalized anxiety disorder. This is more than just everyday worry. It involves feeling excessive anxiety and worry about a number of everyday things, like personal health, family matters, finances, or minor concerns on most days. This worry feels very difficult to control. It's often accompanied by feeling restless or on edge, easily fatigued, having trouble concentrating, feeling irritable, experiencing muscle tension, or having sleep problems. For many, it's a feeling of constant, free-floating worry that isn't tied to just one specific threat, but seems to color everything. APA 2022. Sometimes, anxiety can be directly caused by a substance, such as certain medications, alcohol, or caffeine, or by the withdrawal from them. This is known as a substance/medication-induced anxiety disorder. APA 2022. In other cases, anxiety may be the direct result of a medical condition, such as heart disease, thyroid problems, or respiratory disorders. This is called anxiety disorder due to another medical condition, APA 2022. It's always important for a doctor to check for these possibilities, as treating the underlying cause can often relieve the anxiety. Finally, there are times when symptoms cause significant distress, but don't fully meet all the criteria for the specific disorders we've described. These may be diagnosed as other specified anxiety disorder or unspecified anxiety disorder. These categories allow clinicians to accurately acknowledge and treat distressing anxiety that doesn't fit a perfect mold. Remember, the key theme across all these experiences is a level of fear, worry, or avoidance that is excessive, persistent, and interferes with daily living and peace of mind. It is not a sign of weakness, nor is it an inevitable part of aging. These are real medical conditions, and with understanding, support, and appropriate care, which can include talk therapy and sometimes medication, people can find significant relief and reclaim their sense of comfort and joy in life. Understanding panic and its connections. Outside of the home, a panic attack is a very sudden and intense wave of fear or overwhelming discomfort that peaks within a few minutes. APA 2022. During an attack, a person can experience a host of frightening physical symptoms, such as a racing heart, shortness of breath, chest pain, dizziness, or a feeling of losing control. Sometimes these attacks come with many symptoms, and other times with just a few. For some, these attacks seem to happen out of the blue for no clear reason. For others, they are triggered by a specific feared situation. It is important to know that while panic attacks are a key part of some anxiety disorders, they can also occur in the context of other difficult times in life, such as during periods of deep sadness or extreme stress. Because of this, panic attacks are an important signal for healthcare providers to note, as they can help understand the severity and nature of a person's overall experience. When fear of having these panic attacks in places where help or escape seems difficult becomes a central focus, it can lead to a condition called agoraphobia. This is more than just disliking crowds. It is a profound anxiety about being in situations like using public transit, being in open spaces like a parking lot, being in enclosed places like a small shop, standing in a line, or being in a crowd. The core fear is the thought of being trapped or helpless if a panic attack or other embarrassing symptoms, like sudden dizziness or loss of bladder control, were to occur. As a result, these situations are either endured with intense dread or avoided altogether, sometimes requiring a trusted companion to face them. This avoidance can greatly shrink a person's world and lead to isolation. Finally, we must address a serious and sensitive topic. Significant anxiety and panic are not minor inconveniences. They are forms of profound suffering. Research shows that people struggling with these conditions, particularly panic disorder and generalized anxiety, may be at a higher risk for having thoughts of suicide or attempting suicide. APA 2022. This underscores why these conditions are serious health matters that deserve attention, compassion, and proper care. Acknowledging this link is not to cause alarm, but to emphasize the critical importance of seeking support. Reaching out to a doctor, therapist, or a trusted loved one is a courageous and necessary step towards safety and healing. Effective treatments exist, and with help, the overwhelming weight of anxiety can be lifted. Here are 5 reflection questions and their corresponding answers based on the provided chapter. Review questions. The chapter states that while stress about grades is normal, an anxiety disorder involves feelings that are more intense, persistent, and interfering. Based on the descriptions, what might be the key difference between normal pre-exam stress and an anxiety disorder related to academics? Avoidance is a common behavior mentioned with anxiety disorders. In a college context, what are some specific situations or opportunities a student might avoid due to anxiety, and how could that avoidance impact their academic and social life? The text describes both mental and physical symptoms of anxiety and panic. Why is it important to recognize the physical symptoms, like a racing heart or dizziness, as potentially being part of an anxiety condition and not just a separate physical health issue? The chapter challenges the idea that significant anxiety is just a normal part of the college experience or a sign of weakness. How does reframing anxiety as a treatable health condition rather than a personal failing change the perspective on seeking help? The chapter mentions several resources and pathways for help, including campus health centers and medical checkups. If a student recognized these symptoms in themselves, what would be a manageable first step they could take to start addressing their anxiety? Chapter 2, The Anxious Mind. A Journey into the Living Brain. While nearly everyone knows the feeling of anxiety, it affects each person differently. According to the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition, text revision, DSM-5-TR, the guide that mental health professionals use to diagnose conditions, anxiety crosses the line from a normal emotion to a disorder when it starts causing serious problems in a person's life. At this point, it can take a real toll on physical health, school performance, and overall well-being, APA 2022. But what if you could see the source of this experience? What if anxiety wasn't just an abstract feeling, but had a physical footprint in the very organ that defines who you are? This brings us to a revolutionary perspective. Managing anxiety is inextricably linked to the physical health of the brain. For decades, psychiatrist and neuroscientist Dr. Daniel Amen has championed this idea, declaring that the brain is involved in everything you do, how you think, how you feel, how you act, and how well you get along with other people. Consider this. Over the past 20 years, the Amen clinics have analyzed more than 63,000 brain scans. This isn't just a number. It represents a vast map of human experience, revealing that our thoughts, moods, and characters are reflected in the intricate landscapes of our neural anatomy. The brain as a symphony, visualizing the mind. How do we begin to see anxiety in the brain? Dr. Amen's work utilizes a powerful imaging technology called SPECT, single photon emission computed tomography. Think of a SPECT scan not as a static photograph of the brain structure, but as a dynamic movie trailer showing blood flow and activity levels. A healthy, well-regulated brain, in this view, shows a pattern of full, even symmetrical activity, like a symphony orchestra where every section is in tune and playing in harmony. This balance is the physical foundation for clear thinking, emotional resilience, and fulfilling relationships. When anxiety takes hold, this symphony can become discordant. SPECT scans may reveal overactive areas, like the brain's fear centers sounding a constant alarm, or underactive regions responsible for calm and judgment. This imaging provides a crucial insight. Anxiety has a biology. It is not a sign of personal failure or weakness, but often a signal of a brain pattern that can be understood and optimized. A new paradigm. Brain health is mental health. This leads us to a fundamental principle of this textbook. Your brain's health is the bedrock of your mental and emotional life. An unhealthy brain can manifest as anxiety, depression, or foggy thinking, while a healthy brain promotes peak performance, mood stability, and better decision-making. For you, as a student, this concept is paramount. The brain you bring to your lectures, study sessions, and social interactions directly shapes your college experience. Dr. Amen's protocol is not about simplistic fixes, but a holistic and personalized approach to nurturing the brain. Diagnostic clarity. Through tools like SPECT, patterns are identified, moving treatment from guesswork to precision. The 4 circles of health, true brain health, is cultivated through an integrated focus on biological factors, nutrition, exercise, sleep, psychological habits, thought patterns, social connections, and spiritual purpose. Personalized plans. Just as no 2 fingerprints are alike, no 2 brains are identical. Interventions, from targeted supplements and therapy to lifestyle modifications, are tailored to the individual's unique brain. Proactive education. You are not a passive passenger in your brain's journey. By learning its workings, you gain the tools to care for it proactively, much like an elite athlete trains their body. As we embark on this academic journey together, we will delve deeper into the amygdala's alarm system, the prefrontal cortex's executive control, and the neurochemical ballet of serotonin and GABA. But always remember the central, elegant truth this chapter introduces. According to Dr. Amen, by learning to care for your physical brain, you gain profound power to master your emotional world, turning anxiety from a mysterious foe into a manageable aspect of your incredible, complex self. Your mind is waiting to be discovered. Review questions. Beyond emotion. Based on the chapter, explain how Dr. Daniel Amen's use of SPECT imaging challenges the idea that anxiety is only a psychological or emotional experience. What does this work suggest about its physical basis in the brain? The symphony analogy. The chapter compares a healthy brain to a well-balanced symphony orchestra. Describe what you think might be happening in the brain's symphony during a state of intense anxiety, using terms like overactive, underactive, and discordant. The college connection. Reflect on the 4 circles of health: biological, psychological, social, spiritual. For each circle, provide one specific example of a college habit or behavior that could support brain health and one that could harm it. From generic to personalized, contrast a traditional, one-size-fits-all approach to managing anxiety, e.g., everyone should meditate more, with the personalized treatment model described in the Amen clinics. Why might personalization based on brain imaging be more effective? Critical thinking. While the chapter presents Dr. Amen's brain imaging work positively, some neuroscientists caution that brain scan findings for complex conditions like anxiety can be oversimplified. What is one potential benefit and one potential limitation of using a single brain scan to understand a person's mental health challenges? Chapter 3: The Brain's Balance. Nourishment, toxins, and the pursuit of a flourishing mind. If Chapter 2 invited you to see your brain as a complex and beautiful symphony, then Chapter 3 asks a critical question. What are you conducting that symphony with? Every choice you make, from what you drink at a weekend gathering to how you recover from a long study night, sends direct signals to your neural orchestra, tuning it toward harmony or discord. As you embrace the independence of college life, you are also handed the profound responsibility of becoming your brain's chief steward. This chapter explores a seemingly simple, yet deeply consequential element of that stewardship, what you consume, and how it lays the foundation for everything from momentary mood to a lifetime of creativity and wisdom. Dr. Daniel Amen's imaging research provides a stark lens through which to view this concept. Recall the 63,000 plus brain scans showing the vivid landscapes of brain activity. These scans reveal that a brain exhibiting full, balanced function is not an accident of genetics. It is often the result of deliberate care and the avoidance of common, yet potent, toxins. Foremost among these in the collegiate social landscape is alcohol. The modern paradox, alcohol and the healthy brain myth. You have likely heard the cultural narrative that a glass of red wine is good for the heart. While some epidemiological studies have suggested certain benefits, Dr. Amen's brain-centered approach urges a crucial reframing. What might offer marginal benefit to one system can be a direct tax on another, your brain. From a neurological perspective, alcohol is not a nutrient but a depressant and neurotoxin, and its costs often outweigh any purported gains. Amen. Let's examine the brain-specific invoice of alcohol consumption. The cognitive cost. Even moderate drinking can lead to subtle, cumulative changes in brain structure and function. Alcohol interferes with communication between neurons and, over time, can contribute to a gradual erosion of cognitive reserves, the very mental sharpness you rely on for exams, complex problem-solving, and learning new skills. The sleep saboteur. Perhaps the most underrated toll is on sleep. While alcohol may induce drowsiness, it dramatically fragments the architecture of sleep, robbing you of the deep, REM stage sleep essential for memory consolidation, emotional processing, and cognitive restoration. A nightcap, therefore, can mean you wake with a clearer head, but a less efficient brain. The anxiety amplifier. Contrary to its use as a social lubricant, alcohol is a significant risk factor for anxiety and depression. It depletes key neurotransmitters like serotonin and GABA, which regulate calm and mood. The subsequent rebound neurochemistry can leave you more anxious, not less, in the long run. The brain-healthy lifestyle advocated by Amen Clinics is clear. Minimizing or eliminating alcohol is a direct investment in your brain's capital. This isn't about prohibition, but about informed empowerment. It's choosing hydration with water that nourishes every cell and nutrition rich in antioxidants and healthy fats that build resilient neural pathways. The dividend of a healthy brain, beyond survival to thriving. Why make these choices? The reward, as illuminated by brain imaging, is nothing less than an amplified life. A healthy, well-nourished brain isn't just about avoiding problems. It's the engine for peak human experience. Dr. Amen's work correlates vibrant brain function with elevated outcomes across life's most cherished domains. Happiness. This is not a fleeting feeling, but a sustained state rooted in biology. Balanced activity in the limbic system and prefrontal cortex allows for resilient emotional regulation to experience stress without being overthrown by it. Wealth. Financial acumen springs from cognitive functions housed in a healthy brain: foresight, impulse control, risk assessment, and creative problem solving. A well-tuned brain is your most valuable asset in building prosperity. Wisdom. Wisdom emerges from the integrated function of multiple brain regions. It requires the emotional depth of the limbic system, the moral reasoning of the prefrontal cortex, and the memory stores of the temporal lobes. Brain health is the soil in which wisdom grows. Creativity and innovation. The eureka moment is a neural event. A healthy brain supports greater connectivity between disparate regions, allowing for the novel associations that spark creative thought and groundbreaking innovation in the arts, sciences, and in solving everyday challenges. In summary, the path to managing anxiety and building a fulfilling life converges on the same principle: active brain stewardship. The choices you make at the dining hall, the gym, the party, and in your dorm room at night are not just lifestyle preferences. They are commands you issue to the very core of your being. By choosing practices that enhance blood flow, reduce inflammation, and promote neural growth, you are not merely avoiding decline. You are conducting your symphony toward its most powerful, elegant, and thriving performance. Review questions. Myth busting. The chapter presents a contrast between the common cultural narrative of alcohol's benefits, e.g., for heart health, and Dr. Amen's brain-centric warning. Synthesize these two perspectives. How would you explain to a peer that something can be potentially beneficial for one body system while being detrimental to another? The sleep connection. Explain the paradoxical relationship between alcohol and sleep described in the chapter. Why might someone who uses alcohol to help them fall asleep actually be undermining their brain's recovery and cognitive function for the next day? The 4 circles and a toast. Revisit the 4 circles of health from Chapter 1. Analyze alcohol consumption through each lens: biological, psychological, social, and spiritual. What are potential impacts, both positive and negative, within each circle? From anxiety to innovation, trace the proposed pathway from a brain-healthy habit, like choosing not to drink alcohol, to one of the positive outcomes listed: happiness, wealth, wisdom, creativity, or innovation. Describe the logical, step-by-step connection as outlined in the chapter. Personal audit. Reflect on the chapter's final statement. Your choices are commands you issue to the very core of your being. Identify one daily or weekly command you currently give your brain that supports its health, and one command that may detract from it. What makes the supportive choice sometimes more difficult to maintain in a college environment? Chapter 4: The Plastic Mind. Reshaping your brain's destiny. In our journey thus far, we have marveled at the brain's symphony and learned how our choices can be its conductor. But what happens when the music falters? When injury, habit, or circumstance throws the orchestra into disarray? Chapter 3 confronts a fundamental truth. An unhealthy brain is not a life sentence, but a starting point for transformation. The very factors that can harm your brain, from a sugary diet to a cascade of worried thoughts, are matched by an equally powerful reality: your brain's lifelong ability to change, heal, and renew itself. This capacity, known as neuroplasticity, places the tools for renewal directly in your hands. Dr. Amen's vast library of brain scans reveals a sobering gallery of unhealthy brains. These images do not show a single flaw, but a spectrum of challenges linked to tangible life factors: the lingering shadow of a concussion, the muted activity from chronic stress, or the inflammation linked to a poor diet. An unhealthy brain is often reflected in life itself through cognitive rigidity that resists new ideas, a dampening of creative spark, or the financial missteps born of impaired judgment. Most critically, these scans demonstrate that our behaviors directly script our brain's aging process. We can choose a path of acceleration or deceleration. The two paths, accelerating versus decelerating brain aging. Imagine your brain's timeline not as fixed, but as a malleable narrative where you are the author. The path of acceleration, certain choices act as a fast-forward button on brain aging. The toxic trio, substance abuse, from alcohol to drugs, directly damages neural structures. Metabolic sabotage, obesity, high blood pressure, and diabetes starve the brain of healthy blood flow and promote harmful inflammation. The silent stressor, chronic, unmanaged stress, floods the brain with cortisol, which can shrink key memory centers like the hippocampus. Neglect, a diet of processed foods, a sedentary lifestyle, and chronic sleep deprivation deprive the brain of the raw materials and rest it needs to repair itself. The path of deceleration, this is the path of active, mindful stewardship, and it is available to you starting today. Nourishment, a diet rich in antioxidants, omega-3s, and B vitamins provides the building blocks for neurotransmitters and protects against cellular wear and tear. Movement. Regular exercise is not just for the body. It is a potent fertilizer for the brain, boosting blood flow and stimulating the birth of new neurons, neurogenesis. Connection. Strong social ties and continuous learning build cognitive reserve, making your brain more resilient to damage. Restoration. Prioritizing sleep and managing stress through mindfulness are not luxuries. They are essential maintenance protocols for your most complex organ. Conquering the inner saboteur, automatic negative thoughts, ANTs. Beyond food and exercise, one of the most powerful factors affecting your brain's health is the constant conversation in your mind. Dr. Amen identifies a central culprit in anxiety and depression, automatic negative thoughts, or ANTs. These are the invasive, pessimistic thoughts that swarm into your consciousness, often without invitation. Think of ANTs as the brain's faulty alarm system. In a healthy state, this system alerts you to real danger. But when infested with ANTs, it blares constantly over minor threats or imagined catastrophes. These thoughts are characterized by cognitive distortions. Catastrophizing. If I fail this midterm, I'll never get into law school. All or nothing thinking. My presentation wasn't perfect, so it was a total disaster. Overgeneralization. They didn't text me back. Nobody ever includes me. Disqualifying the positive. I only got that compliment because they feel sorry for me. The danger of ANTs is not just that they make you feel anxious or sad in the moment. Every time you entertain an ANT, you strengthen a neural pathway. It's like wearing a deep, negative trail in the forest of your mind, making it the easiest path to travel. Over time, this reshapes your brain's activity, reinforcing the very patterns associated with anxiety and low mood seen on SPECT scans. The path to liberation, rewiring through awareness and action. The triumphant conclusion from this neuroscience is not one of fear, but of immense hope. If negative experiences and thoughts can change your brain for the worse, then positive, deliberate practices can change it for the better. This is the principle of neuroplasticity in action. You are not powerless against ANTs or the factors that accelerate brain aging. You have an arsenal of tools. Anti-eating. The first step is recognition. Label the thought as an ANT. Then, challenge its distortion. Is it really a catastrophe, or is it a manageable challenge? This act of cognitive restructuring begins to forge new, healthier neural pathways. Professional guidance. Therapies like cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, are essentially structured brain training programs to combat ANTs and build resilience. Holistic practices. When you choose a nutrient-dense meal, you supply the chemistry for calm. When you meditate, you physically calm the amygdala, the fear center, and strengthen the prefrontal cortex, the rational regulator. When you exercise and sleep well, you wash away metabolic waste and consolidate positive learning. Your brain story is still being written. The factors that harm it are well known, but they're outmatched by your capacity for conscious, daily repair. By choosing the path of deceleration, By feeding, moving, resting, connecting, and challenging your brain, you do more than manage anxiety. You seize the pen to author a future of greater clarity, adaptability, and peace. You are not just living with your brain. You are in a constant, beautiful process of rebuilding it. Review questions. The plasticity principle. In your own words, explain how the concept of neuroplasticity transforms the idea of an unhealthy brain from a permanent state to a changeable condition. Use one example from the chapter to illustrate your point. Anti-analysis. Read the following statement. My roommate didn't say hello this morning. They must be furious with me about last night, and now the whole semester is going to be awkward and terrible. Identify at least 2 specific types of automatic negative thoughts, ANTs, present in this statement and explain your reasoning. Lifestyle as medicine. The chapter divides behaviors into those that accelerate and decelerate brain aging. Create a single, specific daily or weekly routine for a college student that incorporates at least 3 decelerating behaviors. Explain how each activity benefits the brain. From thought to biology. Describe the proposed chain of events outlined in the chapter. How can a persistent pattern of automatic negative thoughts, ANTs, lead to physical changes in the brain structure and function over time? Empowerment versus fatalism. Some might find the long list of factors that harm the brain overwhelming. How does the chapter's conclusion use the science of neuroplasticity and practical tools, like anti-eating, to shift the focus from fear to personal agency and empowerment? Chapter 5 Your Brain's Toolkit. Cultivating Resilience and Connection. We have arrived at a pivotal moment in our journey. We have peered into the brain's living landscape, understood the toll of toxins and neglect, and discovered its magnificent capacity for change. Now, we equip you for the path forward. If anxiety and automatic negative thoughts, ANTs, are the mind's weeds, this chapter provides the gardener's tools. More than just a list of strategies, this is a manual for active brain sculpting. The practices detailed here are not mere suggestions. They are exercises that physically reshape your neural architecture, strengthening circuits of calm, connection, and clarity while pruning those of fear and isolation. Your brain's health is not a spectator sport. It is an interactive, daily practice, and you are the protagonist. The Anti-Eater's Guide, Tools for Cognitive Renewal. Recall from the previous chapter that ANTs are the invasive, distorted thoughts that reinforce anxiety's neural pathways. The solution is not to will them away, but to systematically disarm and replace them. Think of these strategies as your mental immune system. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT the gold standard. CBT is the structured, evidence-based practice of becoming a detective of your own mind. It teaches you to identify the ANT, I'm going to fail, challenge its evidence. I am prepared, and I've passed similar tests before, and reframe it into a balanced thought. I'm anxious, but I am capable of handling this challenge. This isn't positive thinking. It's accurate thinking, and with repetition, it rebuilds the brain's cognitive pathways. Mindfulness and meditation, the power of the pause. While CBT analyzes thoughts, mindfulness changes your relationship to them. By training your attention on the present breath or sensation, you create a mental space between a triggering event and your reaction. In this space, you can observe an ANT without being hijacked by it. Neuroscience shows this practice literally calms the amygdala, the alarm center, and thickens the prefrontal cortex, the wise leader, enhancing your emotional regulation. The written defense, journaling. Putting pen to paper transforms vague, swirling anxiety into concrete words you can confront. The act of externalizing your ANTs, I am writing that I feel like an imposter, robs them of their hidden power. You can then use your CBT skills to challenge them on the page, breaking their cyclical grip. Positive affirmations, seeding new pathways. Contrary to being simplistic, deliberately chosen affirmations, I am resilient, I can handle uncertainty, are proactive statements that, when repeated, begin to form new neural grooves. They are not a denial of difficulty, but a conscious cultivation of the inner voice that will support you through it. The social synapse, why your relationships are neural nourishment. Dr. Amen's research delivers a profound insight. The people you spend time with determine your longevity. This is not merely poetic. It is neurological. Our social interactions occur across social synapses, where communication triggers a cascade of neurochemicals. Positive connections release oxytocin, the bonding hormone, and dopamine, the reward chemical, reducing cortisol and strengthening brain regions tied to empathy and emotional control. Conversely, loneliness and toxic relationships are metabolized by the brain as chronic stress, with all its damaging effects. Therefore, cultivating positive social connections is a non-negotiable pillar of brain health. Your toolkit includes curating your inner circle. Actively choose to spend time with people who are supportive, curious, and emotionally regulated. Positivity and healthy habits are contagious at a neural level. Practicing empathetic engagement. True connection requires active listening and perspective taking. This exercises the brain's prefrontal and temporal lobes, building muscle for wisdom and compassion. Building community. Engaging in clubs, volunteering, or group study moves you from passive isolation to active belonging, creating a web of support and shared purpose. The digital detox. Prioritize face-to-face interaction. While social media connects broadly, it often lacks the nuanced, nonverbal communication that feeds our social brain. Excessive scrolling can fuel comparison, a potent ANT, and displace real-world connection. The integrated life, a symphony of daily practices. The final, powerful, is understanding that these tools do not work in isolation. They form an integrated, self-reinforcing system, a positive feedback loop for your brain. Consider this cascade. You practice mindfulness, which helps you manage stress. Lower stress improves your sleep quality. Good sleep enhances your emotional regulation, making you less reactive in social connections. Supportive friendships make it easier to maintain physical activity, a gym buddy, a walking friend. Exercise, in turn, reduces anxiety and improves sleep. This virtuous cycle, fueled by a nutrient-rich diet, continuously bathes your brain in the ingredients it needs to thrive. This is the ultimate takeaway. Managing anxiety and optimizing brain health are the same endeavor. By adopting the strategies in this toolkit, you are not just fighting a symptom. You are engaging in continuous brain development. You are moving from a state of reactivity to one of proactive creation, creating resilience, creating connection, and ultimately, creating a stronger, healthier self. You hold the tools. The neuroplastic potential is your brain's innate gift. Each mindful breath, each challenged negative thought, each moment of true connection is a deliberate, loving stroke of the sculptor's hand, shaping the masterpiece of your mind. Review questions. The feedback loop. Describe a hypothetical, virtuous cycle where one positive brain health strategy, e.g., starting a daily walking routine, could naturally lead to the adoption of another strategy from the chapter, e.g., improved social connection or better stress management. Be specific in connecting the dots. Tool selection. A student is struggling with the ANT. No one in my study group likes me. They think my questions are stupid. Which two specific strategies from the chapter would you recommend they use to combat this thought? Explain why each chosen strategy would be effective in this scenario. The social synapse. Explain the concept of the social synapse in your own words. How does this biological perspective change the way you might prioritize or view your social interactions and relationships? Digital dilemma. The chapter suggests reducing social media time to foster real-life connections. Argue for or against this recommendation from the perspective of a college student. Consider both the potential brain health costs and the possible social benefits of digital connectivity in your answer. From toolkit to lifestyle, reflect on the chapter's conclusion that managing anxiety and optimizing brain health are the same endeavor. Synthesizing concepts from all 4 chapters, write a personal statement of intent. What is one core brain sculpting practice you commit to, and how do you believe it will impact both your neurological health and your experience of anxiety? Chapter 6, The 2 Faces of Fear. Calibrating your brain's alarm system. Welcome to a deeper layer of understanding. We have learned that the brain is malleable and that we possess a toolkit for its care. Now, we must become skilled technicians of our own inner workings. Anxiety, as you have likely experienced, is not a single monolithic state. It can be a slow-burning dread about the future or a sudden, paralyzing jolt of panic. This chapter unveils the neuroscience behind this duality, introducing you to the two central characters in the story of your anxiety, the thoughtful cortex and the instinctive amygdala. Mastering your emotional life requires learning to communicate effectively with both. Imagine your brain's threat response system as a high-tech security operation. The amygdala is your dedicated, ancient guard dog, powerful, instinctive, and lightning fast. Its sole job is survival. When it perceives a threat, a sudden loud noise, a disapproving facial expression, it bypasses all deliberation and triggers the fight, flight, or freeze response, heart pounding, muscles tensing, mind blanking. This is amygdala-based anxiety, raw, emotional, and visceral. The prefrontal cortex, particularly its frontal lobes, is the security headquarters. It is the analytical, modern manager. It assesses the guard dog's alarm by asking, is this a real threat? What is the context? What is the best response? This is cortex-based anxiety. It lives in your thoughts, fueled by what-ifs, catastrophic predictions, and ruminative loops about past or future events. The problem and the opportunity lies in their communication. In anxiety, the guard dog, amygdala, becomes hypersensitive, barking at shadows. The manager, cortex, can become overwhelmed, either going offline, freeze, or spiraling into ineffective worry. Our task is twofold, to soothe the guard dog and to train the manager. Strategy 1. Soothing the amygdala, speaking the language of safety. You cannot reason with the triggered amygdala. You must communicate through physiology and experience. Techniques here are about signaling safety to the deep brain. Diaphragmatic breathing, deep, slow breaths directly stimulate the vagus nerve, the body's central calming pathway, telling the amygdala the emergency is over. Grounding and mindfulness, using your senses, naming 5 things you see, for you feel, anchors you in the safe present moment, interrupting the amygdala's panic cycle. Exposure to techniques and EMDR, these are powerful, structured ways to retrain the amygdala. By gradually and safely confronting a feared situation, exposure, or using bilateral stimulation, EMDR, you help the brain file old threats into memory, not present danger. This weakens the neural charge of the trigger. Strategy 2. Retraining the cortex, building a wise manager. This is where cognitive work shines. We strengthen the prefrontal cortex's ability to interpret, not just react. Psychoeducation. This is your foundation. Simply understanding that this is my amygdala firing a false alarm creates critical distance. It normalizes the experience and reduces secondary fear, being afraid of your own anxiety. Identifying cognitive distortions. This is detective work. You learn to spot the cortex's faulty logic, catastrophizing, mind reading, overgeneralization that fuels anxiety. Cognitive restructuring. This is the repair. You actively challenge the distortion. Is it true that I will never succeed? And replace it with a balanced, evidence-based thought. This is challenging, but I have overcome challenges before. The neurologically informed path, CBT and beyond. Cognitive behavioral therapy, CBT, is a premier framework that skillfully blends these strategies. It is a skill-based training program for your brain. The homework is essential. It is the repeated practice that forges new neural pathways, moving knowledge from insight to instinct. A key insight from modern neuroscience refines classic CBT. Not all anxiety originates in thought. A trauma-triggered amygdala spike may happen before the cortex has time to formulate a thought. Therefore, neurologically informed therapy prioritizes present focus. While understanding the past has value, excessive focus can reactivate and strengthen the very neural circuits we aim to change. The most potent change happens in practicing new responses now. The power of expectancy. Your belief in your capacity to change is a self-fulfilling prophecy. If you believe your brain can learn new patterns, thanks to neuroplasticity, you engage more fully in the work. This hopeful expectation itself activates brain regions associated with resilience and control. Your integrated mission. Your journey is not about silencing your inner guard dog. It is a vital part of your survival. Nor is it about forcing your manager into relentless positivity. It is about fostering a respectful, efficient partnership between them. When you feel a surge of panic, you now know, my amygdala is activated. I will use breath and grounding to soothe it. When you are caught in a spiral of worry, you know, my cortex is looping. I will use cognitive restructuring to guide it. This is the essence of taking charge, discerning the source of your anxiety, and applying the brain-specific remedy. By calibrating this internal system, you move from being a passenger in your own neurochemistry to becoming its pilot. You are not erasing anxiety. You are learning its language and, in doing so, reclaiming the command center of your mind. Review questions. Source identification. Describe one personal or hypothetical example of a cortex-based anxiety symptom and one of an amygdala-based anxiety symptom. Clearly explain which brain structure is primarily involved in each and why. Technique matching. For each of the following techniques, state whether it is primarily aimed at soothing the amygdala or retraining the cortex. A. Cognitive restructuring. B. Diaphragmatic breathing. C. Identifying cognitive distortions. D. EMDR therapy. Justify your choices. The expectancy effect. Explain how a student's expectancy, their belief in the possibility of change, could directly influence the neurological process of overcoming anxiety. How might high expectancy support neuroplasticity? Present versus past focus. The chapter states that excessive focus on the past can reinforce existing circuitry. Contrast this neurologically informed view with a more traditional talk therapy approach that delves deeply into childhood origins. What might be the potential benefit of the present-focused, skill-based approach for creating new neural pathways? Integrated response plan. Create a step-by-step response plan for a student who suddenly experiences intense anxiety, heart racing, panic, right before walking into a final exam. Your plan should include at least one strategy to address the amygdala and one to address the cortex. Chapter 7 Learning Brain. Harnessing neuroplasticity and memory. We have mapped the brain's anxiety circuits and equipped ourselves with tools for change. Now we reach the dynamic, hopeful engine that makes all growth possible, neuroplasticity. This is not merely a scientific term. It is your birthright and your liberation. It means your brain is not a fixed, hardwired machine, but a living, learning forest where pathways are constantly being carved, reinforced, or grown over. Even more astonishing, the very memories that may anchor your fears are not etched in stone. They are living stories, open to gentle editing. This chapter reveals the profound truth. You are not doomed by your brain's past patterns. You are empowered by its constant capacity for self-recreation. Neuroplasticity, the art of rewiring your mind. Neuroplasticity is the brain's fundamental ability to reorganize itself by forming new neural connections throughout life. In the context of anxiety, this is revolutionary. It means the well-worn path from a trigger to a panic response is not a life sentence. You can, with deliberate practice, forge a new path that leads to calm and resilience. Think of it this way. Your brain is like a complex sound recording studio. For years, it may have automatically recorded the same anxious track in response to stress, the racing heart, the catastrophic thoughts. Neuroplasticity is your power to rewind that recording and lay down a new track. Every time you use a breathing technique instead of spiraling, or challenge a negative thought instead of accepting it, you are not just coping. You are physically strengthening new, calm neural circuits and weakening the old, reactive ones. You are, quite literally, teaching your brain a new way to be. This process, however, requires the key ingredients of effort and repetition. Changing your brain is like building muscle or learning a language. It happens not through a single insight, but through consistent, daily practice. This is why the skills from previous chapters, CBT exercises, mindfulness, deliberate social engagement, are so potent. They're your repetitive, focused workouts for a healthier brain. Memory. the surprising malleability of our past. The promise of neuroplasticity extends beyond building new habits. It reaches into the very archives of our experience, our memories. For decades, we thought of long-term memories as fixed files, stored away and recalled intact. Neuroscience has overturned this view. Memories are dynamic, living processes. The journey of a memory involves two key phases. Consolidation. This is the initial process of stabilizing a memory after learning. When neurons fire together during an event, like a stressful experience, their connections strengthen through a process called long-term potentiation. It's as if the brain says, "This was important. Let's make this connection stronger." Reconsolidation. This is the truly transformative discovery. Each time we recall a memory, it doesn't simply play back. It becomes temporarily flexible, or label, before being stored again. It's like taking a book off the shelf, being able to edit a few lines, and then putting it back. This means that emotional memories, including traumatic or fear-based ones, are not permanent records. When recalled in a state of safety, such as in therapy, during mindful reflection, or while using calming techniques, they can be subtly modified and stored with less potent emotional charge. The integrated practice, changing your brain and your story. This science translates into a powerful two-part practice for your life. Part 1. Building new pathways, the forward path. Use your daily toolkit, mindfulness, cognitive restructuring, exercise, to consciously build and strengthen neural circuits of resilience. This is proactive neuroplasticity. You're the architect, laying down the new tracks of peace and capability. Part 2. Softening old pathways, the healing rewrite. When old anxieties or memories surface, understand they have been reactivated and are momentarily malleable. This is your opportunity. Meet that memory or fear with your new tools, grounded presence, self-compassion, and a balanced perspective. By doing so, you help reconsolidate that memory with a new layer of safety and mastery, gradually reducing its power to trigger distress. This is the culmination of your understanding. Your brain is both the canvas and the artist. Its plastic nature means that every effort you make to manage anxiety does double duty. It soothes the present moment and physically reshapes your future responses. You are not just dealing with symptoms. You are participating in the ongoing, graceful regeneration of your own mind. With this knowledge, hope is not just a feeling. It is a neurological prediction, backed by the very structure of your being. Chapter 8, The Neural Highways of Fear. Mapping anxiety's journey through your brain. We have explored the brain's capacity for change. Now let us trace the very roads upon which anxiety travels. Like a city with express lanes and scenic routes, your brain possesses distinct pathways for processing threat, one breathtakingly fast, the other more contemplative. Understanding these internal highways is not an academic exercise. It is the key to deciphering your own reactions. Why does one moment of criticism provoke a day of rumination, while a sudden noise triggers an instant, heart-pounding jolt? This chapter provides your neural map, revealing the origins of your anxiety and illuminating how you can consciously redirect the traffic of your mind. The two pathways, the immediate alarm and the contemplative circuit. Neuroscience identifies two primary routes through which sensory information can generate anxiety. Oxner et al., 2009. Every experience of fear or worry travels one of these roads. 1. The bottom-up pathway, the neural express lane. This is your brain's survival autobahn. When a stimulus is perceived, a shadow in your peripheral vision, a tone of voice, a sudden silence, it can take a direct shortcut. Information races from the thalamus, your brain's sensory relay station, straight to the amygdala, bypassing the conscious, thinking cortex entirely. This is a precognitive reaction. The amygdala, your ancient guard dog, doesn't wait for analysis. It sounds the alarm immediately, activating the fight-flight-freeze response before you've even had a conscious thought. This pathway explains the visceral, overwhelming surge of panic that feels unstoppable. 2. The top-down pathway, the cognitive scenic route. This is the longer, more complex journey. Here, sensory information takes the local route, traveling from the thalamus up to the cortex for detailed processing. The cortex analyzes the context. Is that shadow just a tree? Did their tone mean anger or stress? It draws on memory, reason, and social understanding. Only after this appraisal does the signal proceed to the amygdala. This pathway generates the anxiety of worry, the ruminative what-if spirals, the catastrophic forecasting, the social evaluation that lingers for hours. Here, anxiety is crafted by your thoughts. The amygdala, the guardian and its false alarms. Nestled deep within your temporal lobes, each amygdala is a powerful, almond-shaped cluster of neurons. It is not the source of all anxiety, but it is the convergence point where both pathways meet and emotion is galvanized into a physical response. Its primary role is protective, to forge indelible links between experiences and emotional memory. When you felt shame during a childhood presentation, your amygdala helped file that association. The problem is its imprecision. Through a process like classical conditioning, it can pair a neutral stimulus, a crowded room, a professor's email notification, with a fear response, creating a trigger. Thereafter, it can hijack the system, reacting to these learned triggers with a bottom-up surge before your cortex can intervene. When activated, the amygdala orchestrates a symphony of physiological changes via the hypothalamus and brainstem. Your heart pounds, breath quickens, and muscles tense, all designed for survival. This is the feeling of anxiety in its purest form. Becoming the traffic controller, training your neural pathways. The existence of these two pathways is not a life sentence to anxiety. It is a diagnostic manual for self-regulation. Your goal is to become the skilled controller of your own neural traffic. For bottom-up, amygdala-led anxiety, the strategy is soothing, not reasoning. You must speak the language of the body. Diaphragmatic breathing, grounding exercises, and gentle movement send direct feedback to the amygdala that the body is safe, dialing down the alarm. Techniques like exposure therapy and EMDR work here by providing new, safe experiences that help the amygdala relearn its associations, breaking the conditioned trigger-response link. For top-down, cortex-led anxiety, the strategy is cognitive restructuring. Here, you engage the very cortex that is generating the worry. You identify the catastrophic thought, challenge its evidence, and reframe it. This is not positive thinking. It is accurate thinking. By consciously directing your cortical traffic, you change the message that gets sent to the amygdala, preventing it from being activated by false cognitive alarms. The empowering synthesis is this. Every time you use a bottom-up calming tool during a panic surge, you weaken the amygdala's conditioned response. Every time you successfully reframe a top-down worry, you strengthen your cortex's ability to regulate emotion. You are not just managing symptoms. You are conducting a long-term renovation of your brain's fear networks, teaching your vigilant guardian to distinguish between a true threat and a false alarm, and empowering your wise manager to lead the way. Review interactive questions. Pathway identification. Describe two personal examples, one that likely involved the bottom-up pathway, a sudden, physical anxiety response, and one that involved the top-down pathway, a slower building, worry-based anxiety. Explain the sensory input and why you believe each pathway was dominant. The hijack moment. Explain, in terms of the two pathways, what is happening during an amygdala hijack when someone reacts with disproportionate anger or panic to a minor event. Why is it difficult to reason with someone or yourself in this state? Strategic response. For a student who has a strong bottom-up panic response when hearing an unexpected fire alarm due to a past association, what would be a more effective immediate intervention? A. Explaining logically that it's just a drill, or B. Guiding them through a grounding exercise. Justify your choice using the pathway model. Conditioning and relearning. Using the classical conditioning model, trigger plus negative event equals fear. Describe how a top-down cognitive worry, e.g., I might fail, could itself become a bottom-up trigger over time. How would exposure principles help relearn this association? Integrated map making. Reflect on your own anxiety. Drawing from the chapter, hypothesize which pathway, bottom-up or top-down, is your more common default route. Propose one specific strategy from earlier chapters that is perfectly designed to intervene on that pathway and explain why it fits. Chapter 9, The Guardian's Retraining. Practical tools for a calmer brain. We have mapped the pathways and met the key players, the vigilant amygdala and the reasoning cortex. Now, we move from understanding to action. If your amygdala is a powerful guard dog, loyal but sometimes overzealous, this chapter provides the specific, science-backed training manual. How do you teach this deep, ancient part of your brain new tricks? The answer lies not in forceful suppression, but in skillful, consistent communication. Through specific daily practices and structured challenges, you can send repeated signals of safety, helping your neural guardian distinguish between true danger and false alarms, transforming reactivity into resilient calm. Immediate tools. The language of calm. When the amygdala's alarm sounds, logic is not the first language it understands. You must communicate through physiology. The most direct line of communication is your breath. Diaphragmatic breathing and the vagus nerve. This is not just taking deep breaths. It is a precise biological intervention. When you breathe deeply into your belly, you stimulate the vagus nerve, the longest cranial nerve, which serves as your body's central calming cable. This pressure signals the parasympathetic nervous system to engage, dialing down the crisis response. The results are measurable: decreased heart rate and blood pressure, removal of anxiety-linked lactate from the blood, and a boost in calming neurotransmitters like serotonin. Within minutes, this practice not only soothes the amygdala, but also reactivates your prefrontal cortex, bringing your wise manager back online. Foundational practices, building a resilient brain terrain. Training is not only for moments of crisis. The overall health of your brain creates the terrain upon which your amygdala operates. 2 pillars are non-negotiable. Sleep as neural reprogramming. Sleep, particularly REM sleep, is not passive downtime. It is an active period of emotional processing and memory consolidation. Research shows that sleep deprivation directly increases amygdala reactivity, making you more vulnerable to anxiety. Conversely, sufficient, quality sleep helps regulate this response. The practice of sleep hygiene, a consistent schedule, a dark, cool room, and a screen-free wind-down routine isn't about luxury. It's a nightly reset for your emotional brain, reducing the amygdala's baseline sensitivity. Exercise as an amygdala reset. Physical activity is a potent anxiolytic, anxiety reducer. It works not just by releasing endorphins, but by directly decreasing the activation of specific serotonin receptors within the amygdala itself. Regular exercise essentially teaches the amygdala a lower level of background alert, making it less likely to hit the panic button in response to everyday stress. The transformative challenge, exposure and rewiring. While breathing, sleep, and exercise manage and soothe the amygdala, there is a powerful method that actively retrains it: exposure. This is the cornerstone of rewiring fear-based conditioning. The principle is rooted in neuroplasticity and memory reconsolidation. When you avoid a feared stimulus, a social situation, a specific thought, a physical sensation, you teach the amygdala that its fear is valid. The avoidance confirms the danger. Exposure therapy flips this script. By gradually and systematically approaching the feared stimulus in a state of relative safety, you create a new, competing memory. The process is deliberate. Start small. Begin with a scenario that provokes mild anxiety, e.g., imagining a difficult conversation. Stay and tolerate. Instead of fleeing, you stay with the provoked anxiety, using your breathing tools. You allow the anxiety to peak and then subside, learning through direct experience that you can tolerate it and that the catastrophic outcome does not occur. Repeat and increment. This repetition, often structured as homework, is where rewiring happens. Each time the amygdala fires an alarm and no disaster follows, the old fear memory is updated during reconsolidation. The neural link between the trigger and the fear response weakens, and a new association with safety and mastery is formed. Your role as the trainer, patience and consistency. Training the amygdala requires the patience of a master gardener. It is not about eliminating anxiety, but about changing your relationship to it. The goal is to develop what we call distress tolerance, the ability to feel anxiety without being compelled to act on it impulsively. This work acknowledges a vital truth. A healthy amygdala is not a silent one. We need it to alert us to real threats. The aim is to calibrate its sensitivity, not to dismantle it. By integrating these tools, the immediate calming of the breath, the foundational support of sleep and exercise, and the courageous practice of exposure, you engage in a profound dialogue with your own biology. You are no longer a hostage to ancient alarms. You become the compassionate, skilled trainer of your own neural guardian, building a brain that is not only less anxious, but more resilient, adaptive, and fundamentally at peace. Review questions. Biological communication. Explain how diaphragmatic breathing acts as a direct line to calm the amygdala. In your explanation, describe the role of the vagus nerve and name at least 2 specific physiological changes that result from its activation. The exposure paradox. Exposure therapy often initially increases anxiety before reducing it. Using the concepts of amygdala activation and memory reconsolidation, explain why this temporary increase is not only expected, but is a necessary part of the rewiring process. Hygiene as prevention. Compare and contrast the roles of sleep hygiene and physical exercise in training the amygdala. How does each practice create a different, yet complementary, foundation for a less reactive stress response? Designing a training plan. A student has a strong fear of speaking in class, a top-down worry that triggers a bottom-up panic response. Design a gradual, 3-step exposure plan for them, starting from a low-anxiety scenario and progressing to the target fear. For each step, suggest accompanying calming technique they could use. Beyond elimination, the chapter concludes that the goal is not a silent amygdala, but a well-calibrated one. Why is it adaptive and healthy to maintain some level of amygdala sensitivity? How does this perspective reframe the objective of anxiety management from never feeling anxious to building distress tolerance? Chapter 10, The Architect of Anxiety. Mastering your mind's narrative power. We have trained the guardian. Now we must enlighten the architect. If the amygdala is the brain's reactive guard dog, the cortex is its visionary designer, constantly sketching blueprints of reality, past, and future. This remarkable region, the seat of your consciousness, holds a dual power. It can be the primary source of your anxiety, and it holds the master key to its resolution. In this chapter, we step into the cognitive control center. We will learn how the stories you tell yourself, the interpretations, predictions, and endless inner dialogues directly construct your emotional experience. By becoming conscious architects of this inner narrative, you gain the ultimate tool for peace, the power to redesign your mind's landscape from the top down. The top-down pathway, where thought becomes feeling. Recall the 2 neural highways. While the bottom-up pathway delivers sensory shocks, the top-down pathway is the contemplative scenic route. Here, sensory information is sent to the cortex for deep analysis. The cortex asks, what does this mean? Have I seen this before? What could happen next? It then sends its interpretation, a thought, a memory, a vivid image to the amygdala. This is the critical juncture. A thought from the cortex can activate the amygdala just as powerfully as a sudden noise. This pathway explains why anxiety can flourish in the absence of any immediate threat. Your cortex can generate a terrifying future scenario during a quiet study session or replay a cringeworthy social moment from years ago, each time triggering a fresh wave of amygdala-driven stress chemicals. In essence, you can scare yourself with your own thoughts. The cortex as both arsonist and firefighter. Your cortex is not a monolith. Different regions contribute to anxiety in distinct ways. The right hemisphere often generates the vivid, distressing mental imagery, the movie of something going terribly wrong. The left hemisphere, particularly involved in language and logic, can spiral into repetitive, analytical worry, the broken record of catastrophic reasoning, also known as rumination. Together, they form a powerful anxiety-generating team. Yet, this same cortical machinery is equipped to de-escalate fear. Its capacity for logic, context, and reinterpretation allows it to act as the amygdala's wise regulator. The pivotal question is, which cortical function are you strengthening? Are you exercising the circuits of catastrophe or the circuits of calm reasoning? Cognitive distortions, the flawed blueprints. Anxiety disorders are often sustained by habitual errors in thinking, systematic distortions in how the cortex interprets events. These are not mere negative thoughts. They are faulty cognitive habits that feel like truth. Common distortions include catastrophizing, predicting the worst possible outcome. Mind reading, assuming you know what others are thinking and that it's negative. Overgeneralization, seeing a pattern of defeat based on a single event. All or nothing thinking, viewing situations in only two categories, perfect or total failure. These distortions are the cortex's flawed blueprints. They ensure that neutral or ambiguous situations are interpreted as threats, guaranteeing a steady stream of alarm signals to the amygdala. Retraining the architect, cognitive restructuring. The process of correcting these flaws is called cognitive restructuring, and it is the cornerstone of cortical retraining. It involves becoming a detective of your own mind. Catch the thought. Notice the anxious thought or image as it arises. My professor didn't call on me. She thinks I'm unprepared and incompetent. Check the evidence. Investigate the thought like a scientist. Is there concrete proof? What is the alternative explanation? She called on 3 people total. She may not have seen my hand. I was prepared. Construct a balanced thought. Replace the distortion with a more accurate, nuanced interpretation. I would have liked to contribute, but not being called on doesn't reflect my knowledge or her opinion of me. I can share my idea after class. This practice is not positive thinking. It is accurate thinking. By consistently identifying and disputing distortions, you accomplish 2 profound neural tasks. You weaken the well-trodden pathways of automatic negative thinking, and you strengthen the cortical circuits for rational appraisal and emotional regulation. You are teaching your cortex to send calmer, more accurate memos to the amygdala. Your narrative authority. Understanding the cortex's role grants you a liberating insight. Much of your anxiety is generated internally by a meaning-making machine that can be recalibrated. The parents worrying about their safe child, the student agonizing over a future exam. These are not reactions to current reality, but to cortical constructions of reality. Your mission is to claim your authority as the author of your inner narrative. When you feel anxiety rising, pause and ask, is this a bottom-up sensation or a top-down story? If it's a story, you have the power to edit it. By cultivating mindfulness to observe thoughts without fusion, and by practicing cognitive restructuring to challenge their validity, you shift from being a prisoner of your cortex's noise to being the director of its wisdom. You move from building labyrinths of worry to drafting blueprints for resilience. Review questions. The thought-feeling chain. Trace the specific neural sequence of the top-down pathway from an external event, e.g., seeing a notification for a graded assignment, to a feeling of anxiety. Be sure to detail the role of the thalamus, cortex, and amygdala in your sequence. Distortion diagnosis. Identify and define the primary cognitive distortion present in this thought. I stumbled over my words once during my group presentation. Now everyone in the class thinks I'm incapable, and it's going to ruin my reputation for the whole semester. Hemispheric collaboration. Using the chapter's description, explain how both the right and left hemispheres of the cortex might collaboratively contribute to sustaining social anxiety before a party. Provide a hypothetical contribution from each hemisphere. Restructuring in action. Perform a cognitive restructuring exercise on the thought from question number 2. Write down the original thought, then follow the 3 steps, catch, check, construct, to develop a more balanced, evidence-based alternative. Meta-awareness. The chapter concludes by emphasizing the shift from being a prisoner of cortical noise to being its director. What specific mental action or shift in perspective defines this transition? Chapter 11, The Mind's DJ. Remixing your thoughts and changing the channel. You are now the cartographer of your neural pathways and the trainer of your emotional guardian. But who controls the daily broadcast in your mind? In the studio of your consciousness, a constant stream of thoughts, interpretations, and predictions plays on loop. Is it a channel of criticism, a station of catastrophe, or a frequency of calm? This chapter introduces you to your most personal role yet, the DJ of your own mind. You will learn that the cortex is not a fixed, auto-playing system, but a dynamic processor you can actively reprogram. By learning to identify, challenge, and ultimately change the station, you move from a passive listener suffering through static to a skilled mixmaster, creating a soundtrack of resilience. The cortex as interpreter, your personal news anchor. Every event you experience, from a low grade to a quiet glance in the dining hall, is raw data. Your cortex acts as a 24/7 news anchor, interpreting that data and presenting a story to the rest of your brain. As Aaron Beck's cognitive therapy reveals, emotional distress is not caused by the event itself, but by the story your cortex tells about it. These stories are often skewed by predictable biases or cognitive distortions. Pessimism and catastrophizing. This one failed quiz means I'll lose my scholarship. Overestimation of danger. Speaking up will definitely lead to humiliation. Underestimation of coping ability. I could never handle living away from home. These distortions are the cortex's faulty programming, creating a reality that feels more threatening than it is and sending constant alerts to the amygdala. Underestimation of coping ability. I could never handle living away from home. Cognitive restructuring. The reprogramming software. The science is clear. The neural pathways you use most become the strongest. If you habitually engage in catastrophic thinking, you pave a neural superhighway for anxiety. The good news? You can use this same principle to build highways for resilience through cognitive restructuring. This is your mind's debugging software. It involves a deliberate, step-by-step process to challenge and rewrite the faulty narrative. Think of it as fact-checking your internal news anchor. The 5-point reality check. When an anxiety-inducing thought strikes, pause and interrogate it. Likelihood, 0 to 10, how probable is this feared outcome? E.g., my friends will drop me if I'm sad equals likelihood 2/10. Awfulness, 0 to 10 if it happened. How truly catastrophic would it be? E.g., failing one assignment is bad, but is it a 10 out of 10 disaster? More like a 6 out of 10 setback. Responsibility, 0 to 10, how much is truly under my control? E.g., I am responsible for my study effort, but not for the curve or the professor's mood. Coping ability, 0 to 10, how well could I handle the outcome? E.g., I've handled disappointment before. I have support. My coping is a 7 out of 10. Perspective, am I stuck in one narrow view? What's another way to see this? This process isn't about naive optimism. It's about replacing distortion with accuracy, which naturally reduces the amygdala's alarm signal. Changing the worry channel, your power to choose. Here is the most empowering metaphor for your cognitive control. Your mind is like a television with many channels. When you ruminate on a social faux pas, you're tuned to the social catastrophe channel. When you lie awake forecasting failure, you're on the doomsday prediction network. These channels are run by your cortex, and they frighten your amygdala. The critical realization is this. You are not the show that's playing. You are the one holding the remote. Notice the channel. Become aware of what's playing. I'm back on the I'm not good enough channel. Acknowledge the choice. You do not have to watch. The thought is just a signal. You decide if you engage. Deliberately change it. This is an active, willful skill. Change to the fact-check channel. Use your 5-point reality check. Change to the present moment channel. Engage your senses. Name 5 things you see. Change to the action channel. Do something constructive. A single small task. Go for a walk. Text a friend. Change to the compassion channel. Talk to yourself as you would to a worried friend. Your daily practice. From passive listener to active creator. Reprogramming the cortex is a daily discipline, a workout for your mind. It means catching the trigger. I feel my chest tighten after seeing that email. Identifying the broadcast. The thought is, my professor is criticizing me. I'm on the rejection channel. Running the reality check. Likelihood? She often sends neutral emails. Awfulness? A clarifying email is not a catastrophe. Coping? I can handle feedback. Choosing a new channel. I'm switching to the curiosity channel. I'll read the email calmly and see what it actually says. This is the essence of neuroplasticity in action. Every time you change the channel, you weaken the connection to the anxiety channel and strengthen your command over the remote. You are not eliminating negative thoughts. You are mastering your relationship to them. You are no longer a prisoner of your cortex's worst productions. You are the director, the producer, and the DJ, capable of crafting a narrative of agency, perspective, and peace. Review questions. The reality check audit. Apply the 5-point reality check to a common college worry. If I don't get an internship this summer, my career is ruined. Provide a brief rating, 1 to 10, and rationale for likelihood, awfulness, and coping ability. Channel identification. List 3 specific channels, metaphorical thought patterns a student might get stuck on during finals week. For one of them, suggest a specific channel they could switch to and a concrete action that would facilitate that change. From distortion to restructuring, identify the primary cognitive distortion in this thought. I didn't get invited to that study session. Everyone must find me annoying or stupid. Then write a restructured, more balanced, and accurate thought to replace it. The remote control analogy. Explain how the changing the channel metaphor directly relates to the neurological principles of neuroplasticity and the cortex amygdala pathway discussed in earlier chapters. Personal programming. Reflect on your own mental channel lineup. What is one unhelpful channel you recognize you sometimes tune into? Design a personal channel-changing protocol for yourself, naming the unhelpful channel, the physical/emotional signal that tells you you're on it, and the exact step you will take to change it. Chapter 12, The Anticipatory Mind. From future fear to present power. You have learned to manage the present moment amygdala alarm and to reprogram the cortex's negative narratives. Now, we turn our attention to the brain's most remarkable and often most troubling gift, its ability to project itself into the future. This power of anticipation, housed in your frontal lobes, is the engine of human achievement. It allows you to study for an exam, save money, and dream of your future career. Yet, this same engine, when left unchecked, can become a runaway train of worry, hijacking your present with fears of what might be. This chapter is your guide to becoming the skilled conductor of that train. We will move from being victims of future tripping to masters of mindful anticipation, transforming anxiety about tomorrow into purposeful engagement with today. The double-edged sword of anticipation. Anticipation is not anxiety's enemy, it is its origin. The process is natural. Your cortex simulates future scenarios to help you prepare. However, when this simulation fixates on threat, it creates a self-fulfilling prophecy of distress. The critical insight is this. The peak of anxiety almost always occurs in the anticipation of an event, not during the event itself. The dread before the party is often worse than the party. The fear before the presentation exceeds the moment you begin speaking. This happens because anticipatory worry activates the amygdala as if the threat were real, triggering a cascade of stress hormones for a disaster that exists only in thought. We must therefore learn to separate productive preparation, visualizing success, planning steps, from destructive worry, catastrophizing outcomes, ruminating on failure. Cognitive diffusion, seeing thoughts as clouds, not commands. A core skill in managing anticipation is cognitive diffusion. This is the practice of creating space between yourself and your thoughts. Fusion means buying into every thought as absolute truth. I'm going to fail feels like a fact. Diffusion means observing thoughts as passing mental events. I'm having the thought that I might fail. How do you practice diffusion? Label the process. Simply say to yourself, that's my worry channel playing again, or I'm having a catastrophic thought. Use metaphors. See your anxious thoughts as clouds drifting across the sky of your mind. They are there, but they are not the sky itself. or see them as leaves floating down a stream. You can watch them pass without jumping in. Thank your mind. Humorously acknowledge your brain's overzealous protection. Thanks, mind, for that dramatic forecast. I'll take it under advisement. The don't trust your cortex reminder. This isn't about cynicism, but about humility. Your cortex is a brilliant storyteller, not an oracle. Question its predictions. Scheduling worry and changing the channel. To break the cycle of intrusive worry, you must assert deliberate control over it. Schedule a worry appointment. Designate a specific, limited 15-minute time each day to write down your worries and potential solutions. When worries pop up outside this time, gently remind yourself, I have a time for this. Not now. The worry channel remote. Use the metaphor from Chapter 9. When you notice anticipatory worry running on a loop, consciously decide to change the channel. Switch to the present moment channel, engage your senses, the fact check channel, use your reality check, or the next action channel, do one small, productive thing. Coping statements and embracing discomfort. Your inner dialogue during anticipation is crucial. Replace fused, catastrophic thoughts with grounded, compassionate coping statements. These are not empty affirmations, but evidence-based truths to counter distortions. My anxiety always peaks before, not during. I can ride this wave. Worrying does not prevent outcomes. Preparing does. I don't need to be perfect. I need to be present. This feeling is uncomfortable, but it is not dangerous. I can tolerate it. Uncertainty is not a threat. It is the space of possibility. This leads to the final, vital skill, discomfort tolerance. A major goal is not to eliminate anxious feelings, but to build the confidence that you can handle them. Prepare for discomfort as you would for a challenging hike, with the right gear, your coping tools, the knowledge that it's part of the journey, and the faith that you will get through it. Your agency over tomorrow. Mastering anticipation is the culmination of your brain training journey. It synthesizes everything, soothing the amygdala when worry triggers it, using cognitive restructuring to challenge catastrophic predictions, and employing diffusion to see thoughts for what they are. You are learning that the power of your frontal lobes to imagine, plan, and foresee is yours to direct. You can choose to use it to build scaffolds of preparation, not prisons of dread. By scheduling worry, diffusing from thoughts, and speaking to yourself with compassionate realism, you reclaim your present moment. You move from a state of fearing the future to one of engaging with it, mindful, prepared, and resilient, knowing that the sky of your mind can hold many clouds without being defined by any one of them. Review questions. Diffusion in action. Take the common anticipatory thought. My future is ruined if I don't get into graduate school. Apply a cognitive diffusion technique to it. Write down how you would A. Label the process, and B. Use a metaphor, like clouds or leaves, to create distance from the thought. The worry appointment. Design a worry appointment protocol for a student overwhelmed by finals anxiety. Specify the time of day, duration, and a two-step process for what they would actually do during that appointment, e.g., write, plan, problem solve. Coping statement creation. Identify the cognitive distortion in this anticipatory thought. If I go to the career fair and feel awkward, it will prove I'm not cut out for the professional world. Now, craft a specific, evidence-based coping statement to counter this thought. Metaphor to mechanism. Choose one of the chapter's metaphors, e.g., the worry channel, clouds in the sky, vehicles passing by. Explain how this metaphor directly corresponds to a neurological process involving the cortex and amygdala discussed in this or previous chapters. Personal anticipation plan. Reflect on a specific upcoming event that triggers your anticipatory anxiety. Create a brief, 3-part personal plan for managing it. 1. One diffusion strategy you will use when worries arise. 2. One coping statement you will repeat. And 3. One concrete action you will take to prepare, shifting from worry to productive action. Chapter 13, The Balanced Mind. Integrating your brain's two worlds. You have journeyed deep into the mind's inner workings, learning to soothe the amygdala's alarms and to guide the cortex's narratives. Now, we reach a pivotal integration. Your brain is not a single, uniform entity, but a dynamic partnership between two distinct worlds, the analytical, verbal left hemisphere and the holistic, intuitive right hemisphere. For too long, anxiety management has focused predominantly on the left hemisphere's domain of words and logic. But what of the right hemisphere's realm of imagery, music, and nonverbal feeling? This chapter invites you to become a diplomat between these two worlds, mastering interventions for each and fostering their harmonious collaboration. True resilience is not born from silencing one half of your experience, but from integrating the full spectrum of your mind. The left hemisphere, refining the storyteller. Our work thus far has largely engaged the left hemisphere, the seat of language, linear logic, and sequential thought. Its interventions are crucial for dismantling anxiety's faulty narratives. Cognitive restructuring and diffusion. These are your left hemisphere's precision tools. They allow you to edit the script of your worries word by word, challenging inaccuracies and loosening the grip of fused thoughts. Strategic distraction. Here, we refine a common tool. Distraction is not about avoidance, but about conscious redeployment of attention. When your left hemisphere is stuck on an unproductive worry loop, you can deliberately engage it in a complex, absorbing task, a puzzle, a detailed project, learning a new fact. This isn't running from a problem. It's giving the problem-solving part of your brain a constructive alternative focus, preventing it from spiraling. The key rule: use distraction to manage the process of rumination, not to avoid confronting core beliefs that need to be restructured. The right hemisphere, welcoming the artist. Anxiety is not only carried by words, it is often painted in vivid, terrifying images and felt as a somatic, nonverbal dread. This is the domain of the right hemisphere. To fully heal, we must speak its language. The right hemisphere processes the world in a different key. Nonverbal cues. It reads faces, body language, and tone, often the source of social anxiety. Imagery. It generates the mental movies of catastrophe that can feel more real than reality. Music and rhythm. It processes melody and emotion in sound. The whole picture. It seeks patterns, context, and holistic meaning, asking not what are the parts, but what is the feel of this? When overwhelmed, the right hemisphere can bombard you with negative imagery and visceral fear. The goal is not to shut it down, but to retrain and nourish it. Interventions for the right hemisphere, cultivating calm imagery. To calm an overactive, fear-based right hemisphere, we must feed it alternative input. We replace the dark imagery with light. Curate your visual diet. Actively replace negative mental images with artwork, photographs, or scenes that evoke peace, awe, or joy. Create a gallery of calming images on your phone or wall for quick access. Engage in right hemisphere activities. Listen to instrumental music, sing, dance, or create art. These activities directly engage the brain's holistic, emotional centers, providing a healthy outlet for feeling and processing. Mindful observation. This is a cornerstone. Practice observing the present moment, the play of light, the details of a leaf, the sounds around you, without labeling or judging. This anchors the right hemisphere in the sensory reality of the now, away from catastrophic futures. The unifying power of mindfulness and acceptance. The bridge between your brain's two worlds is mindfulness. It is the meta skill that allows you to observe the left hemisphere's chatter and the right hemisphere's imagery with equal, compassionate detachment. Mindfulness creates measurable changes in the cortex, strengthening connections that enhance emotional regulation and making the brain more resilient to anxiety. Mindfulness teaches a radical yet simple truth. The most effective way to cope with anxiety is not to combat the feeling, but to change your relationship to it. This is the principle of acceptance. It means acknowledging, I am feeling anxiety, without adding the second layer of distress, and this is terrible and I can't stand it. When you accept the presence of discomfort, you remove the power struggle. You see anxiety not as a threat to be eliminated, but as a signal, a piece of information from your brain that you can observe, investigate, and respond to with choice. Becoming the integrated self. Your final task in mastering your mind is to move fluidly between its complementary strengths. When a worry arises, you can use your left hemisphere to assess its logic and your right hemisphere to visualize a positive outcome. When overwhelmed by feeling, you can use right hemisphere activities to soothe the senses and left hemisphere planning to take one small step forward. This integrated approach is your path to a balanced life. You are no longer just a logic machine trying to out-argue fear, nor a captive of unspoken dread. You are a whole person. You can analyze and feel. You can plan and intuit. You can use words to reframe your story and imagery to inspire your spirit. By honoring both hemispheres, you claim the full resources of your magnificent brain, transforming anxiety from a tyrant into a teacher on your journey toward a resilient, creative, and peaceful self. Chapter 11. Interactive Questions. Hemispheric Diagnosis. A student experiences anxiety as a constant, looping verbal critique in their head. You're not good enough. Another experiences it as a sudden, overwhelming image of failing in front of a crowd. Which hemisphere is likely the primary source for each experience? Justify your answer. Strategic distinction. Explain the difference between using distraction as a healthy cortex-based intervention versus using it as a form of avoidance that reinforces anxiety. Provide a specific example of each. Right hemisphere prescription. Design a right hemisphere calming kit for a stressful exam week. List 3 specific, nonverbal, sensory-based activities, e.g., listening to a specific type of music, and explain why each would help regulate an overactive right hemisphere. The acceptance shift. The chapter states that acceptance means removing the second layer of distress. Describe what this second layer is and rewrite the anxious thought, "I'm panicking and this is unbearable," into a statement that reflects mindful acceptance. Integrated response plan. Recall the 2 pathways, bottom up and top down, and the 2 hemispheres. Create a brief, 2-part response plan for dealing with pre-presentation anxiety. Part 1 should address a right hemisphere/sensory component of the anxiety, and Part 2 should address a left hemisphere/cognitive component. Chapter 14, The Empowered Mind. Your blueprint for a resilient life. You have arrived at the culmination of a remarkable journey. We began by peering into the living landscape of your brain, learning its language and mapping its pathways of fear. We equipped you with tools to soothe the amygdala's primal alarm and to reprogram the cortex's intricate narratives. Now, we step back to view the entire masterpiece and define your true mission. This final chapter is not about an ending, but about a beginning, the start of your lifelong practice as the architect of your own resilient mind. Here, we solidify the most important goals, shift from a mindset of fear to one of mastery, and empower you with the liberating truth. You are not here to eliminate anxiety. You are here to transform your relationship with it. The paradigm shift. From enemy to information. The single most important goal is to abandon the futile war against anxiety itself. Aim to eliminate anxiety, and you have already lost. Why? Because anxiety is not a flaw, it is a feature. It is your brain's ancient, hardwired protective system. The true aim is management, not eradication. This requires a profound reframing. Anxiety is a signal, not a sentence. Its physical symptoms, the racing heart, the tight chest, are not proof of danger, but evidence of a system designed to protect you. They are the revving of your engine, not the sign of a crash. Anxiety is not failure. Experiencing anxiety does not mean you are failing at recovery or that treatment isn't working. It means you are human, engaging with a challenging world. Progress is measured by your changing response to the anxiety, not its absence. The goal is recalibration, not silencing. We seek to turn down a hypersensitive alarm system so it alerts you to real fires, not just the smell of smoke. A well-calibrated system provides motivation, focus, and energy, the beneficial edge of normal anxiety. The core tenets of an empowered mind. Your journey has equipped you with a new set of operating principles. Let these be your guiding blueprint. Acknowledge and accept. The first step to power is acknowledging reality. Feel the physical symptoms without layering on catastrophic interpretations. This panic means I'm dying. Simply note, my amygdala is activated. This is uncomfortable, but it is not dangerous. Train through exposure. The most potent tool for long-term change is exposure. By gradually and courageously facing feared situations, thoughts, and sensations, you teach your amygdala new, non-threatening associations. Remember, the anxiety you feel during exposure is not a sign it's going wrong. It's the sign it's working. You are forging new neural pathways in real time. Employ your whole brain toolkit. You are no longer limited to one approach. For the bottom-up, amygdala, surge, use breath, movement, and grounding. For the top-down, cortex, spiral, use cognitive restructuring, diffusion, and scheduled worry. For the right hemisphere's imagery, use art, music, and mindful observation. For the left hemisphere's logic, use fact-checking and problem-solving. Trust in neuroplasticity. Above all, trust the science of change. Your brain is not static. Every time you choose a coping thought over a catastrophic one, every time you breathe through a panic surge, every time you face a fear, you are literally rewiring your brain. You are the sculptor. Your lifelong practice, integration, and compassion. Managing anxiety is not a destination you reach, but a practice you live. It is the daily integration of all you have learned. It is recognizing a worry as just a thought channel and changing it. It is feeling your heart pound before a presentation and saying, "This is my body preparing to engage." It is ending a difficult day by listening to music that soothes your right hemisphere, rather than ruminating with your left. This practice is rooted in self-compassion. You will have difficult days. The goal is not perfection, but persistence. When you stumble, you do not fall back to the beginning. You have a map now. You know the pathways. You have the tools. Conclusion: the journey forward. You now understand the elegant, two-pathway system within your skull. The bottom-up pathway connects your senses directly to the emotional guardian, the amygdala. The top-down pathway allows your thoughtful cortex to interpret, contextualize, and ultimately regulate that response. Both pathways are trainable. The amygdala learns through repeated, safe experience. The cortex learns through deliberate, compassionate redirection of thought. You are leaving this text not as a patient, but as a practitioner. You are not a passive victim of your neurochemistry. You are an active participant in its redesign. The anxiety you feel is a part of your humanity, but it no longer needs to be the author of your story. You hold the pen. You have the blueprint. Go forth and build a resilient, creative, and courageous life, one mindful choice, one brave exposure, and one recalibrated thought at a time. Interactive questions. The goal reframe. Explain why eliminating anxiety is both an unrealistic and a biologically unwise goal. Then, articulate what the healthier, more achievable primary goal of anxiety management should be, according to the chapter. Exposure's paradox. The chapter states that feeling anxiety during exposure therapy is the sign it's working. Explain the neurological reason for this, referencing both the amygdala and the process of memory reconsolidation. Symptom interpretation. A student feels dizzy and short of breath while studying in a crowded library and interprets it as a sign they are having a medical emergency, catastrophic interpretation. Using the chapter's principles, what is a more accurate, empowering way to interpret these physical symptoms? The whole brain response. Design a comprehensive response plan for a student facing a major, anxiety-provoking deadline. Your plan must include one strategy aimed at the bottom-up/amygdala response, one for the top-down/left cortex, cognitive response, and one for the right hemisphere, emotional/imagery response. Personal philosophy. Synthesizing the entire book, write a personal, brain health philosophy statement in 3 to 4 sentences. This statement should reflect your understanding of neuroplasticity, the two pathways of anxiety, and your own role in managing your mental well-being as you move forward in college and beyond. Appendix. Answers to interactive questions. Answers. Chapter 1A. Normal stress versus an anxiety disorder. Normal pre-exam stress is typically temporary and tied directly to the event. It might motivate studying and fade after the exam. An anxiety disorder related to academics is more pervasive and disruptive. It involves persistent, excessive worry about performance that lasts for months, is difficult to control, and leads to behaviors like chronically skipping class due to fear of being called on, severe procrastination due to fear of failure, or physical symptoms like panic attacks before every test. The key difference is the degree, duration, and impairment. The anxiety is disproportionate, long-lasting, and actively interferes with a student's ability to function in their academic life. Avoidance in college. A student might avoid speaking in class, leading to lower participation grades. They might skip lectures, group projects, or office hours due to social anxiety, harming their academic understanding and connections. They could avoid the dining hall, social events, or club meetings, leading to isolation and missing out on the formative social network of college. This avoidance creates a cycle where fear limits opportunities, which can increase anxiety about falling behind academically or feeling disconnected socially, further shrinking their world. Recognizing physical symptoms. It is crucial because these physical symptoms can be frightening and are often mistaken for serious medical problems, like a heart attack or fainting spell. Without understanding they are linked to anxiety, a student might make repeated trips to the emergency room or focus solely on physical tests, delaying appropriate treatment for the root cause. Recognizing that a racing heart, shortness of breath, or dizziness can be hallmarks of a panic attack allows an individual to seek the correct help from a mental health professional and reduces the added fear of an unknown medical catastrophe. Reframing anxiety as a health condition. This reframing reduces stigma and self-blame. Seeing anxiety as a personal weakness can lead to shame and the belief that one should just tough it out. In contrast, viewing it as a common and treatable health condition, similar to managing asthma or a migraine, makes seeking help a sensible act of self-care. It empowers the student to see a therapist or doctor as a source of expert support and strategies, not a judgment on their character. This perspective fosters courage to seek support rather than silent suffering. A manageable first step. A very manageable first step would be to visit the university's counseling center website to look at services offered or to call to ask about a brief consultation or intake appointment. Another low-pressure step could be talking to a trusted resident advisor, academic advisor, or a professor they feel comfortable with, who can provide reassurance and guide them to campus resources. The chapter also highlights the importance of a medical checkup, so simply scheduling an appointment with a campus health doctor to discuss the physical symptoms could be a straightforward starting point. The key is taking one small, concrete action to move from private worry to connected support. Chapter 1b. Answer. Dr. Amen's SPECT imaging shows that anxiety correlates with observable patterns of blood flow and activity in the brain. This suggests anxiety is not just a subjective feeling, but has a physical basis, linked to overactive or underactive brain regions, challenging the idea that it is purely psychological. Answer. During intense anxiety, the brain's symphony becomes discordant. The amygdala fear center may become overactive and loud, while the prefrontal cortex, the conductor for judgment and calm, may become underactive or disconnected, leading to a loss of harmonious regulation. Answer. Biological. Support. Eating omega-3 rich foods. Harm. Consistent sleep deprivation. Psychological. Support. Practicing mindfulness. Harm. Engaging in constant self-criticism. Social. Support. Joining a study group. Harm. Isolating when stressed. Spiritual. Support. Reflecting on personal values. Harm. Neglecting activities that provide a sense of purpose. Answer. A generic approach applies the same advice, e.g., meditate, to everyone. A personalized model uses brain imaging to identify unique activity patterns, e.g., an overactive limbic system, and tailors treatment, e.g., specific supplements or targeted therapy to that individual's biology, leading to more precise and effective intervention. Answer. Benefit. A scan can demystify anxiety, provide objective validation, and increase motivation for treatment by showing a tangible cause. Limitation. A single scan is a snapshot. It may oversimplify a complex condition, cannot capture the full dynamic context of a person's life, and may lead to over-attribution of symptoms to biology alone. Chapter 2. Answer. You could explain that while some research suggests moderate alcohol might benefit the cardiovascular system, it acts as a neurotoxin, impairing communication between brain cells, disrupting sleep architecture, and depleting mood-stabilizing neurotransmitters. Optimizing one system at the expense of the brain is a poor trade-off for overall well-being. Answer. Alcohol sedates the brain to induce sleep, but severely disrupts the sleep cycle, particularly REM and deep sleep stages crucial for memory consolidation and cognitive restoration. This results in waking with a less rested, more cognitively impaired brain. Answer. Biological. Harm, liver processing, neural inhibition. Psychological. Potential benefit, reduced social inhibition in the short term. Harm, increased depression/anxiety long term. Social. Benefit can be a social lubricant. Harm can lead to conflict or isolation. Spiritual. Harm can cloud judgment and disconnect one from values or sense of purpose. Answer. Choosing not to drink alcohol improves sleep quality during sleep. The brain consolidates learning and clears metabolic waste. This enhances cognitive function, including creative problem solving and flexible thinking, leading to greater innovation in academic or personal projects. Answer. Supportive command. I will prioritize 7 to 8 hours of sleep. Detrimental command. I will pull an all-nighter before exams. The supportive choice is difficult because of academic pressure, social activities, and the immediate gratification of late-night screen time, which often outweighs the delayed benefit of rest. Chapter 3. Answer. Neuroplasticity means the brain structure and connections can change based on experience. For example, chronic stress can weaken the hippocampus, a negative change, but consistent meditation can strengthen prefrontal cortex connections, a positive change showing the brain is malleable, not fixed. Answer. Catastrophizing. The whole semester is going to be awkward and terrible, and mind reading. They must be furious with me. Answer. Sample routine. 1. Morning 10-minute meditation. Decelerates stress. Strengthens PFC. 2. 30-minute afternoon walk with a friend. Exercise boosts neurogenesis. Social connection reduces cortisol. 3. Eating a colorful salad at dinner. Nutrients reduce brain inflammation. Each activity provides distinct, compounding benefits for brain structure and function. As a common and treatable health condition, similar to managing asthma or a migraine, makes seeking help a sensible act of self-care. It empowers the student to see a therapist or doctor as a source of expert support and strategies, not a judgment on their character. This perspective fosters courage to seek support rather than silent suffering. Answer. Persistent antis activate the brain's stress response, release cortisol. Chronic high cortisol can damage hippocampal cells and strengthen amygdala pathways. This biological change makes the brain more prone to future anxiety and reinforces the negative thought patterns, creating a vicious cycle. Answer. The science shifts focus from a fixed label, I have an unhealthy brain, to a dynamic process. My brain has learned these patterns, and it can learn new ones. Practical tools like anti-eating provide immediate, actionable steps, transforming overwhelming fear into manageable tasks and empowering the individual to be an active agent in their own neuroplastic change. Chapter 4. Answer. Starting a daily walking routine, exercise, reduces stress and improves mood, increases likelihood of reaching out to a friend for a walking partner, fosters a positive social connection, which provides emotional support, further reducing stress and completing a positive feedback loop. Answer. 1. Cognitive restructuring. To directly challenge the distortion, they think my questions are stupid, with evidence, e.g., they always respond, I contribute valuable points. 2. Practicing empathy/active listening to shift focus from self-judgment to engaging with others, strengthening social bonds, and providing counter-evidence to the ante through positive interaction. Answer: the social synapse refers to the neurobiological exchange that happens during social interaction, where communication triggers the release of bonding and reward chemicals, oxytocin, dopamine. This perspective frames relationships as literal neural nourishment, making social health as critical for the brain as diet or sleep. Answer: for reduction, excessive social media can fuel comparison and tease, displace face-to-face interaction crucial for the social brain, and promote chronic low-grade stress, harming amygdala regulation. Against reduction, with nuance for college students, digital networks can maintain crucial long-distance support, provide access to niche communities, and facilitate planning for in-person meetups. The key is mindful, intentional use rather than passive, excessive scrolling. Answer: practice daily cognitive restructuring. Impact: by challenging antes, I will physically weaken my brain's anxiety pathways, amygdala triggering, and strengthen my prefrontal cortex's regulatory circuits. This will reduce the intensity and frequency of anxious episodes, making me more resilient and in control of my emotional responses. Chapter 5. Answer: cortex-based, lying awake worrying about an upcoming exam. The cortex generates the catastrophic future scenario, I'll fail, which then signals the amygdala. Amygdala-based, a sudden, heart-pounding jump at a loud noise in a quiet library. The sensory input bypasses the cortex via the thalamus, directly and instantly triggering the amygdala's fight-flight-freeze response. Answer: A. Retraining the cortex. B. Soothing the amygdala. C. Retraining the cortex. D. Soothing/retraining the amygdala. Justification: A and C involve analyzing and changing thought content. B and D involve physiological regulation and altering deep emotional conditioning. Answer: high expectancy, belief that change is possible, engages the brain's reward and motivation systems, increasing dopamine. This enhances attention, commitment to practice, and reinforces new learning. It essentially primes the brain for neuroplasticity, making it more receptive and active in building new, resilient neural pathways. Answer: excessive focus on past origins can reactivate and strengthen the very emotional memories and neural circuits involving the amygdala and connected cortex that maintain anxiety. A present-focused, skill-based approach prioritizes practicing new responses in the current moment, which is essential for building new neural pathways that bypass or inhibit the old, reactive ones. Answer: 1. For the amygdala, immediate take 3 slow, deep diaphragmatic breaths to activate the parasympathetic nervous system and signal safety. 2. For the cortex, following use a coping statement. This is my body's energy to perform. I am prepared. I can handle this. Chapter 6. Answer: bottom up, jumping and gasping when a door slams shut unexpectedly. The loud sound takes the direct thalamus-amygdala path. Top down, feeling a growing sense of dread for days before meeting a partner's parents. The cortex imagines scenarios, interprets social risks, and gradually activates the amygdala. Answer: during a hijack, a potent trigger, often a learned emotional memory, activates the bottom-up pathway. The amygdala fires intensely and rapidly, flooding the cortex with stress chemicals that impair its rational function. Since the cortex is effectively offline, logical reasoning is physiologically impossible in that moment. Answer: B. Grounding exercise. Justification: the panic response is a classic bottom-up amygdala reaction based on a past conditioned association. Logic: A. Requires a functioning cortex, which is compromised. A grounding exercise directly soothes the amygdala through sensory feedback, calming the body first. Answer: a cognitive worry, I might fail, is a top-down event. If this thought repeatedly triggers strong anxiety, amygdala activation, the thought itself can become a conditioned trigger via association. Over time, merely having the thought can provoke an automatic bottom-up panic response. Exposure would involve repeatedly bringing up the thought, I might fail, while staying grounded, teaching the amygdala that the thought is not a present moment danger. Answer: hypothesized default, top-down/cortex pathway. Strategy: cognitive restructuring. Why it fits. If my anxiety often stems from ruminative worry, the intervention needs to target the cortex's narrative. Restructuring directly challenges and changes the thought patterns that are feeding the amygdala, addressing the problem at its perceived source. Chapter 7. Answer: diaphragmatic breathing stimulates the vagus nerve, the main component of the parasympathetic nervous system. Activation of this nerve sends direct signals to the amygdala to reduce its firing. Physiological changes include decreased heart rate and blood pressure, and increased release of calming neurotransmitters like serotonin. Answer: the temporary increase in anxiety is the amygdala's conditioned fear response being activated. For rewiring to occur, this old memory/response must be activated, made label so it can be updated. Staying in the exposure while anxious, but safe, allows the brain to form a new, non-threatening memory during reconsolidation, overriding the old fear association. Answer: sleep hygiene prevents a state of hyperreactivity by reducing the amygdala's baseline sensitivity and allowing for essential emotional memory processing during REM sleep. Exercise actively decreases amygdala reactivity by altering neurochemistry, e.g., serotonin receptors, and serves as an acute stress buffer. Sleep is about restoration and lowering baseline. Exercise is about building resilience and providing an active reset. Answer: Step 1. Low anxiety. Practice the presentation alone in their room. Use diaphragmatic breathing beforehand. Step 2. Medium present to a trusted friend or small study group. Use a grounding technique. Feel feet on floor if anxious. Step 3. High speak up in class. Use a pre-planned coping statement. My goal is to share one idea, not to be perfect. Answer: some amygdala sensitivity is adaptive. It's crucial for detecting real, immediate threats, like a swerving car, and motivating preparatory action. This reframes the objective from the impossible goal of never feeling anxious to the achievable goal of building distress tolerance, which is the ability to feel anxiety without being disabled by it, ensuring the alarm system works for us, not against us. Chapter 8. Answer: see email notification. Sensory input. Thalamus relays data, cortex processes, recognizes sender, interprets meaning, graded work is back, accesses memories, last time I did poorly, generates thought, I probably failed. This thought is sent as a signal. Amygdala activates anxiety felt. Answer: overgeneralization, taking one event and applying it to all future events / the whole semester, and mind reading, assuming knowledge of others' negative thoughts. Answer: the right hemisphere might generate a vivid, distressing image of standing alone in a corner while everyone else laughs and socializes. The left hemisphere might engage in rumination with a repetitive, verbal critique. You won't know what to say. They'll think you're boring. Answer: catch, I stumbled, so everyone thinks I'm incapable and my reputation is ruined. Check evidence. I spoke clearly for 95% of the talk. People asked me questions afterward. One stumble doesn't define a whole performance. No one has said my reputation is damaged. Construct balanced thought. I had a minor stumble in one presentation, which is normal. My overall content was strong, and this single moment does not define my capabilities or my reputation with my peers. Answer: the transition is moving from fusion, being caught in the thought, believing it wholly, to meta-awareness, observing the thought from a distance. Mindfulness enables this by training the brain to notice thoughts as they arise, creating a space between the thought and the self, allowing for choice rather than automatic reaction. Chapter 9. Answer: likelihood. 3 out of 10 many careers have multiple pathways. One summer does not dictate a lifetime. Awfulness. 5/10 a setback, not a ruin. It would require a pivot and create challenge, not end possibilities. Coping ability. 7/10 I can seek alternative opportunities. build skills elsewhere, and apply again next cycle. I have resilience and support. Answer. Channels. The Doomsday Channel. The Comparison Channel. Others are doing better. The Burnout Channel. For Doomsday Channel, switch to Action Channel, Action, Open Planner, and complete one single, specific 25-minute study block. Answer. Distortion. Mind reading and catastrophizing. Restructured thought. I wasn't invited to one study session. There could be many reasons, size, last-minute planning, that have nothing to do with me. This doesn't mean people dislike me. I can organize my own session or ask to join the next one. Answer. The metaphor relates directly to neuroplasticity and pathway training. Each channel represents a specific neural pathway, cortex amygdala circuit. Habitually tuning to the anxiety channel strengthens that circuit. Changing the channel is the conscious act of redirecting cognitive focus, which activates and strengthens a different neural pathway, weakening the anxiety circuit through disuse. Answer. Unhelpful channel. The imposter channel. Signal. Tight stomach and thought, I don't belong here. Change protocol. When I feel the signal, I will. 1. Label it. Imposter channel is on. 2. State of fact. I earned my place here through. Specific achievement. 3. Change to curiosity channel by asking one question in class or to a peer. Chapter 10. Answer. A. Label. That's my catastrophic future forecasting story playing again. B. Metaphor. I'm watching the thought like a dramatic movie trailer on a screen. It's just a preview, not the actual film of my life. Answer. Time. 5 p.m. for 15 minutes. Process. Step 1. Write down every worry about finals swirling in my head. Step 2. For each worry, write one small, concrete action I can take to address it, e.g., worry. I'll fail chemistry. Action. Do 5 practice problems from Chapter 7 tonight. Answer. Distortion, catastrophizing, and fortune-telling. Coping statement. Feeling awkward is normal and temporary. One uncomfortable interaction is not a verdict on my entire professional potential. My worth is not defined by a single conversation. Answer. Metaphor. Clouds in the sky. Neurological process. The clouds represent individual thoughts generated by the cortex. The sky represents the broader awareness of the mind. The metaphor illustrates cognitive diffusion. Just as clouds pass through the sky without changing it, anxious thoughts can pass through awareness without having to be believed or acted upon, preventing them from triggering a sustained amygdala response. Answer. Event. A crucial job interview. Plan. 1. Diffusion. Label thoughts as interview story time and imagine them as text scrolling on a teleprompter. 2. Coping statement. My anxiety is just energy. I am prepared and capable of engaging in conversation. 3. Action. Research the company and prepare 3 thoughtful questions to ask them. Chapter 11. Answer. The constant verbal critique is primarily left hemisphere activity, language, analytical self-critique. The overwhelming image of failing is primarily right hemisphere activity, vivid visual imagery, holistic emotional processing. Answer. Healthy distraction. Consciously choosing to work on a complex puzzle for 20 minutes to break a cycle of rumination about a future event, then returning to address it. Avoidance. Binge watching TV for hours every time you have a stressful thought about a looming deadline, never making a plan or confronting the worry. Answer. Kit. 1. Listen to ambient or classical music without lyrics. Engages right hemisphere's music processing, can lower emotional arousal. 2. Spend 10 minutes doodling or coloring in a mandala. Engages visual spatial centers, provides a nonverbal outlet for stress. 3. Take a 5-minute sensory walk, noticing only colors and textures, not labels, grounds the right hemisphere in present moment sensory input, away from future-based imagery. Answer. The second layer is the judgmental, catastrophic evaluation of the initial feeling, and this is unbearable. Acceptance-based statement. I am feeling panic. It's a wave of sensation. I can feel it without believing it's an emergency. It will pass. Answer. Part 1, right hemisphere / sensory before starting. Take 30 seconds to mindfully observe the room, notice colors, shapes, sounds, to ground in the present and calm any overwhelming imagery. Part 2, left hemisphere / cognitive have a pre-written, balanced mantra on a note card. My goal is to communicate my ideas clearly. It's okay to be human. Chapter 12. Answer: eliminating anxiety is unrealistic because anxiety is a normal, adaptive survival system. Eliminating it would be biologically dangerous, leaving one unprepared for threats. The healthier goal is to manage and recalibrate the anxiety response so it is proportionate and informative, not debilitating. Answer: for exposure to work, the old fear memory, stored in the amygdala and its circuits, must be activated or reactivated so it becomes label. The feeling of anxiety is that activation. By staying in the situation while experiencing anxiety, but realizing the feared outcome doesn't occur, a new safe memory is formed and reconsolidated over the old one, rewiring the response. Answer: a more accurate interpretation. These are the physical symptoms of a triggered fight or flight response. My amygdala is active because I'm stressed about studying. This is uncomfortable but not dangerous. My body is mobilizing energy. I can use breath to calm it. Answer: bottom up / amygdala. Set a timer for a 3-minute box breathing exercise to directly lower physiological arousal. Top down / left cortex. Use cognitive restructuring. This is a big task, not an impossible one. I have handled deadlines before. I will break it into 3 chunks. Right hemisphere. Listen to an instrumental focus playlist for 15 minutes while working to engage holistic processing and soothe emotional imagery without verbal distraction. Answer: sample philosophy. My brain is not fixed but plastic, built to learn and change. Anxiety flows through ancient emotional pathways and modern thought pathways, and both can be trained. My role is to be the active caretaker and trainer of my brain through mindful practices, courageous exposure, and compassionate redirection, building resilience for lifelong well-being. Glossary. Amygdala is an almond-shaped structure in the temporal lobe that is a component of the limbic system and considered part of the basal ganglia. It comprises 2 main groups of nuclei. Functions as well as an important role in memory, emotions, perception of threat, and fear learning. Anxiety is an emotion characterized by apprehension and somatic symptoms of tension, in which an individual anticipates impending danger, catastrophe, or misfortune. The body often mobilizes itself to meet the perceived threat. Muscles become tense, breathing is faster, and the heart beats more rapidly. Anxiety may be distinguished from fear both conceptually and physiologically, although the 2 terms are often used interchangeably. Anxiety is considered a future-oriented, long-acting response broadly focused on a diffuse threat, whereas fear is an appropriate present-orientated and short-lived response to a clearly identifiable and specific threat. Cortex is the outer or superficial layer or layers of a structure, as distinguished from the central core. In mammals, the cortex of a structure is identified with the name of the gland or organ, for example, the adrenal cortex. Mindfulness is awareness of one's internal states and surrounding. The concept has been applied to various therapeutic interventions, for example, mindfulness-based cognitive behavior therapy, mindfulness-based stress reduction, and mindfulness meditation, to help people avoid destructive or automatic habits and responses by learning to observe their thoughts, emotions, and other present moment experiences without judging or reacting to them. Thalamus is a mass of gray matter forming part of the brain, whose 2 lobes form the walls of the 3rd ventricle. It consists of a collection of sensory, motor, autonomic, and associational nuclei, serving as a relay for nerve impulses traveling between the spinal cord and brainstem and the cerebral cortex. References. Amen D.G. 2015. Change Your Brain, Change Your Life. The Breakthrough Program for Conquering Anxiety, Depression, Obsessiveness, Anger, and Impulsiveness. Revised and Expanded Edition. Harmony Books. American Psychiatric Association. 2022 Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, 5th edition. Text Rev. https://doi.org/10.1176/apphi.books.9780890425787. Ecker, B., Tissick, R., and Hulley, L., 2012. Unlocking the Emotional Brain, Eliminating Symptoms at Their Roots Using Memory Reconsolidation. New York, Routledge. Gray, R. N. Budenpotts, D. and Burke, F. 2017. Reconsolidation of Traumatic Memories for PTSD, a randomized controlled trial of 74 male veterans. Psychotherapy Research, Journal of the Society for Psychotherapy Research, 1-19. DOI 10.1080/1050330 7.2017.1408973. Gray, R. M. Budenpotts, D. and Burke, F. 2017. The Reconsolidation of Traumatic Memories, RTM, Protocol for PTSD, a Case Study. Journal of Experiential Psychotherapy / Revista de Psychotherapie Experientiala, 24, 47-61. Pittman, C. M. and Carl, E. M. 2015. Rewire Your Anxious Brain, How to Use the Neuroscience of Fear to End Anxiety, Panic, and Worry. Oakland, California, New Harbing. Barlow, D. H. and Krask, M. G. 2007. Mastery of Your Anxiety and Panic Workbook, 4th ed. New York, Oxford University Press. Seifert, C. and Becker, C. B. 2007. Cognitive Behavioral Therapy for PTSD, a Case Formulation Approach. New York, Guilford Press. Disclaimer. This book is intended to provide educational information and general insight into anxiety disorders. It is designed to promote understanding, reduce stigma, and offer helpful perspectives. However, it is crucial to understand that this book is not a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. The content within is for informational purposes only and is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any mental health condition. If you or someone you know is experiencing symptoms of anxiety, panic, or significant distress that interfere with daily life, it is essential to seek the guidance of a qualified professional. Please consult a licensed mental health therapist, psychologist, psychiatrist, or other healthcare provider for a proper evaluation, diagnosis, and treatment plan tailored to your individual needs. Do not disregard professional medical advice or delay seeking it because of something you have read in this book. If you are in crisis or experiencing thoughts of harming yourself or others, please contact emergency services immediately or a crisis hotline such as the 988 Suicide and Crisis Lifeline. Your mental health is of the utmost importance. This book aims to be a companion to professional care, not a replacement for it. Taking the step to seek help from a qualified professional is a sign of strength and the most effective path toward well-being. About the author. Dr. Sheila Hodge-Windover's distinguished career is a testament to her resilience. After founding the Mind Builder Early Group Preschool in St. Kitts, her exceptional work earned a government scholarship to Trinidad for her early childhood certification. This dedication was recognized with the 1990 Caribbean Youth of the Year Award. Her academic journey, fueled by evening classes and college credits from the College of Further Education, led to a BS and MS in psychology from Cameron University and a PhD in health psychology / behavioral medicine from North Central University. A certified hypnosis instructor, executive life coach, and adjunct professor at Cameron University since 2011, she translates deep clinical expertise into tools for liberation. Dr. Sheila is a prolific author whose work, including the recent Amazon releases The Grace Glitch, Terminated, Trust No One, and Inspired to Rise, Teachers, Trials and Triumphs, masterfully blends behavioral science with compelling narrative. She doesn't just tell a story. She provides a validated blueprint to reclaim your mind and life, anchoring her transformative work in faith, education, and profound personal experience. Journey. Thank you for taking this journey with me. Your readership is truly the heart of my work, and I am so grateful you chose this story. Craving more true stories? Join me on Substack for free short stories, exclusive insights, and weekly updates delivered straight to your inbox. Become part of the community. https://drsheilahodgewindover.substack.com. Discover my latest books, released 2025. These captivating true stories are available now on Amazon. The Grace Glitch. Terminated. Trust no one. Exit Strategy Part 1. Your voice matters. If this story moved you, please consider leaving a review on Amazon. Your feedback not only means the world to me, but also helps other readers discover my work. You can leave a review directly on my Amazon author page at https://www.amazon.com/store/dr/sheilathhodgewindover/author/bfwxlrqf=ap_rdrn shopping portal enabled =true nccs_id =da8ddfa4a3. Coming in 2026, a new chapter. I'm thrilled to share these upcoming titles with you soon. Mammy's Tug of War. Iona Barrage's Determined, Purposeful, Resilient Life Part 2 and 3. Exit Strategy Part 2. From Street Kids to Oklahoma, The Heart That Navigated Two Worlds. Glad Elementary School Part 1. Reserve your next journey. Be among the first to experience these complete stories when they become available for pre-order. Exit Strategy Part 1 and 2. From St. Kitts to Oklahoma, The Heart That Navigated Two Worlds. Mammy's Tug of War. Iona Barrage's Determined, Purposeful, Resilient Life. A special audiobook gift. Sign up for updates to receive a free audiobook file of these stories upon their release. Let's stay connected. For the latest news, behind-the-scenes stories, and more. YouTube, https://www.youtube.com/@drshodge. Author websites. www.unravelred.com, www.drhodgewindover.com, www.mindheartandsoul.com, https://www.facebook.com/profile.php?, Thank you for your wonderful support. I look forward to sharing many more stories with you. Warmly, Dr. Sheila's Bookshelf.
Do you remember this house? You don't remember this house?